You sit in the quiet, thinking you're the one guiding every word, every decision, every flicker of thought. Yet pause for a moment and listen closely. Where did that last thought come from? Did you choose it, or did it simply appear, uninvited, like a stranger entering through an unlocked door? This is the puzzle that has haunted philosophers, neuroscientists, and seekers of truth for centuries. Perhaps you are not the master of your mind, but merely the listener of a script already written. Tonight, in this journey with the present path, we step into a labyrinth where identity blurs, where choices whisper from behind unseen walls, and where thoughts may not belong to you at all. Stay with this voice as we peel back the silence. Section by section, you may find that the one listening now is not the one you thought you were. Silence is never truly silent. When you lie awake at night, waiting for the world to dim into rest, you discover that the silence is filled with a voice you cannot escape. It is not spoken aloud, yet it rings louder than any sound. It is the voice that speaks your name in your own head, that narrates your decisions, that judges your mistakes, that imagines your triumphs, and still, the deeper you listen, the stranger it becomes. For if you did not summon this voice, if it arrives unannounced, whispering before you ask, then whose voice is it really? You assume it is yours. After all, it sounds like you, it has your accent, your rhythm, your vocabulary. It feels like the internal echo of your existence. But this assumption is fragile, easily cracked. Think of the moments when an intrusive thought slips through, a thought so sudden, so alien, that you recoil and wonder, where did that come from? Did you choose it, or did it arise from somewhere else? Some hidden chamber of the brain, where your conscious self never wanders. Neuroscience tells us that thoughts precede awareness. In study after study, electrodes detect activity in the brain, seconds before you become aware of deciding. A flicker in the motor cortex predicts the choice before you feel you've made it. In other words, your brain moves first, and you catch up later with the story. The voice inside silence is not your commander. It is your narrator, explaining events after the fact. Like a commentator describing a game already underway, it insists you are the one playing, when in truth you are hearing the play-by-play of a game already decided. Imagine a book whose pages turn on their own. You are the reader, convinced your eyes determine the next word, the next sentence. Yet, as the chapters move forward, you realize the ink was already there, long before you arrived. That is how thoughts move through you. They are pages already written, revealed to your mind in the slow unfolding of time. You may pause on a line, savor it, resist it, but you cannot alter the ink. The voice that reads in silence is not the author, only the witness. And still, the illusion persists, because without it, the fragile structure of selfhood might collapse. If you are not the one speaking in your mind, then who are you? If you are only the listener, then where does the speaker live? Perhaps in the hidden machinery of neurons firing in loops, or perhaps in something even stranger, a vast network of borrowed voices, stitched together from every conversation you've ever heard, every word you've ever read, every sound you've ever absorbed. Notice this, the next time you drift into daydream. The words that fill your mind often belong to others. You recall your teacher's scolding tone, your friend's laughter, the phrases of books or films that still linger. You summon accents you've never practiced, languages you barely know. The voice inside silence is not one voice at all, but a chorus. And the chorus does not need your permission to sing. Philosophy has long whispered this suspicion. In Buddhism, thoughts are described as clouds drifting across the sky of awareness, never owned, never permanent, never truly you. In Descartes' meditations, doubt itself becomes the only certainty, but even that certainty arises as thought. I think, therefore I am. Yet, who is the I that thinks? If the thought comes unbidden, is it not just as valid to say, it thinks, therefore I witness? Consider dreams, where voices speak with conviction, characters argue, entire dialogues unfold without your effort. You listen, you respond, yet the script is not yours. The dream composes itself in real time, faster than you can analyze it. And when you wake, you call those voices imaginary. But how different are they from the voices that appear in waking silence? Both arrive without invitation, both vanish without command, both leave you wondering who, if anyone, is behind them. Perhaps the silence itself is the origin. When all external sound is stripped away, when the body is still, when the world recedes, the brain reveals its constant hum. The voice is not separate from silence but born of it, a vibration that fills the empty space, much like a seashell carries the echo of the ocean. You listen, and it sounds like you, yet it is only silence reshaped into thought. This realization can be unsettling, even terrifying. If you are not the speaker, then who listens? If you are not the master of thought, then what remains of self? But it can also be freeing, for if the voice arises unbidden, then perhaps its sharp edges do not define you. The cruel self-critic, the anxious forecaster, the endless rehearsals of failure, perhaps they are not you but simply weather passing across the mind's sky. You need not cling to them. You need not fight them. You can let them move, while you remain still. And in that stillness, another paradox emerges. The silence behind the voice feels more like home than the voice itself. You begin to suspect that what you truly are is not the thought, but the space in which the thought appears. You are the stage, not the actor. The silence, not the sound. The listener, not the voice. Yet even here, a question lingers, unshakable. If you are not the voice, and you are not the one controlling it, then who is listening now? Every choice you make feels deliberate. An arrow aimed by your will. You pick the shirt you wear, the food you eat, the path you take through the day. You nod and say, yes, I decided this. But beneath each decision moves a shadow, unseen yet heavy. The shadow guides before you know you are guided, nudges before you feel the push, decides before you announce the decision. You live in the glow of choice, yet choices are shaped by what lurks in the dark corners of your mind. Memories, biases, instincts, fears, patterns laid down long before your conscious self arrived to claim them. Think about the last time you stood before two options. One friend calling, another waiting. You tell yourself you weighed the possibilities, that you chose with reason. But if you peel back the surface, what was really there? The pull of habit, the comfort of familiarity, the sharp edge of guilt, the whisper of expectation. These are shadows, and they steer the wheel with hands you cannot see. You take credit, but the shadows made the path long before you noticed the road. Neuroscience reinforces this suspicion. In experiments with split-brain patients, where the left and right hemispheres are separated, researchers asked each hemisphere to make different choices. The patient's hand might draw a picture their conscious mind could not explain, yet when asked why they drew it, the conscious self invented a story, a rationalization. The shadow moved first, and awareness trailed behind, stitching together a tale that made it seem as if the choice was deliberate. You live in that same gap, forever explaining decisions whose roots lie hidden. Consider language. The words you use carry histories you did not design. You pick a phrase, believing it to be yours, yet the phrase is borrowed from culture, family, friends, books, the media. Even your accent is a shadow, shaped by voices around you. When you choose a word, you are guided by echoes that stretch back decades, centuries, even millennia. The choice feels like sunlight, but the shadows wrote the script. Philosophy has long wrestled with this tension. Nietzsche spoke of the will as something layered, driven by instincts and forces beneath awareness. Freud mapped the unconscious, where desires and fears crouch like figures in a dimly lit alley, influencing what you see and what you avoid. Today's neuroscience describes the brain as a prediction machine, generating probabilities before awareness arises. In all these models, shadows rule first. You step in afterward, claiming the crown that was never truly yours. And what about moral choices? The moments when you tell yourself you acted out of virtue, compassion, integrity. Even these shimmer with shadow. Evolutionary psychology suggests that altruism often hides self-interest, reputation, survival of kin. Your kindness may be genuine, but beneath it lies the shadow of biology, whispering, protect your group, secure your place, ensure your genes. You act, and then you paint the action with noble light, unaware of the darker strokes beneath. This realization does not have to strip meaning away. Instead, it can be a mirror. Look at the pattern of your life. How often do you repeat the same choices, circle back to the same habits, end up in the same places? The shadows are consistent. They trace outlines you rarely escape. Even when you think you are breaking free, the shadows bend you back into form. You crave newness, yet the familiar draws you home. Think of addiction, not just to substances, but to routines, relationships, even patterns of thought. A person swears to change, to move beyond the cycle. Yet days later, they return. Why? The shadow of habit pulls stronger than the conscious will. Neural pathways carved deep cannot be erased with declarations. They hum beneath awareness, guiding choice like an undertow beneath the surface of water. Dreams offer a strange reflection of this process. You find yourself running, deciding, fleeing, embracing, yet you wake and realize none of those choices were deliberate. They were shadows acting through you, stories unfolding without your command. Waking life is not so different. The shadows of memory, fear, desire, and habit run their scripts, and you follow, convinced you are the director, but you are more like the actor, speaking lines already rehearsed in the dark. So where does this leave you? Are you powerless, a puppet of shadows, or is there another way to understand it? Perhaps freedom is not the absence of shadows, but awareness of them. To see the patterns moving through you, to recognize when a decision is less deliberate than it feels, is to step into a new kind of clarity, not absolute control, but a deeper witnessing. And yet, even here, a paradox lingers. For when you notice the shadows, is that noticing not also shaped by shadows? When you believe you are waking up to the truth, is that awakening not another choice guided by forces unseen? The loop closes on itself. You try to step outside, but every step lands within. Still, there is beauty in this realization. The shadows remind you that you are not separate from history, biology, culture, memory. You are woven into a web older and larger than yourself. Each choice you make is the flicker of countless influences, converging in a moment that feels like yours. The shadows guide, but they also connect, linking you to ancestors, strangers, unseen forces that shaped your mind. So the next time you feel yourself deciding, pause, watch the shadows move, feel the pull of patterns older than you. Recognize that the sunlight of choice shines only because the shadows carve its shape, and in that recognition, perhaps a gentler freedom arises, not control but surrender to the mystery of being moved. And once again, the question returns. Softly, insistently, if shadows guide your choices, then who are you in the middle of it all? You like to think you're in control. It feels natural to imagine yourself at the wheel of your life, steering through choices, commanding thoughts, deciding outcomes. Every gesture, every word, every plan seems to arise from this steady pilot you call self. But peel back that confidence, and you begin to see the cracks in the story. Control may be nothing more than a mirage shimmering on the horizon, always visible, never solid. Think of the smallest actions: reaching for a glass of water, turning your head toward a sound, shifting your weight as you sit. By the time you consciously notice what you are doing, the body has already moved, neural circuits fired before awareness arrived. You catch the tail end of the process and claim ownership. I did this, you say, but the doing began without you. The control you feel is retroactive, a story told after the fact. This story runs deep. It shapes entire societies. We punish criminals because we believe they chose to act. We reward achievers because we believe they commanded their own success. Yet in the laboratory, the evidence grows heavier. Readiness potentials in the brain spike seconds before reported decisions. Electrical whispers predict which hand you will move before you can declare it. You are not steering, you are watching the wheel turn, then explaining why it turned. Imagine walking through a city with traffic lights. You believe you cross because you chose to, because you pressed forward with your will. Yet beneath that moment lies the system. The light turned green, the crowd began to move, your body followed patterns of safety, timing, habit. You stepped, and afterward, the narrative of choice crystallized. The illusion of control is like the green light. You think it responds to you, when in truth you are responding to it. Philosophers have circled this paradox for centuries. Spinoza wrote that men believe themselves free, only because they are aware of their desires, but ignorant of the causes that determine them. Schopenhauer sharpened it further. Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. You choose what to do, but not what to want. The origin of wanting itself lies beyond you. Control becomes a mask, hiding the machinery of causes. And yet, the illusion is not simply a trick. It serves a purpose. Without it, your sense of self might dissolve into paralysis. If you knew every moment, that decisions form outside your command. You might collapse into passivity, unable to move. The illusion gives you coherence. It ties scattered impulses into the story of, I decided. It lets you live as though you are the author, even if the pen moves by unseen hands. Think of language again. Words tumble from your mouth in conversation. You do not script each syllable in advance. You do not choose each phrase with deliberate calculation. They flow, they spill, they form in real time. Only afterward do you marvel. I said that. Where did it come from? The unconscious networks of the brain, practiced patterns of speech, cultural echoes. You control far less than you believe, yet the illusion of authorship makes the words feel like yours. Dreams expose this fragility. Within a dream, you act, run, speak, fight, embrace. It all feels like control, until you wake and realize you were carried along, powerless to change the script. But waking life may not be so different. Both are streams unfolding without command. Both are stories you inhabit, not stories you control. The dream dissolves at dawn, while waking life persists, and so you cling to the difference. Still, the illusion of control binds them together. Consider also the realm of emotion. Anger flares, joy bursts, grief crushes. Do you summon these states by command, or do they surge through you uninvited, dragging behavior in their wake? Control is absent, yet afterward you tell the story. I lost my temper. I chose to laugh. I decided to move on. The illusion stitches chaos into narrative. Without it, you would be swept away. But is this realization despairing or freeing? If control is an illusion, then failure may not cut as deep. If you never commanded your every thought, then intrusive voices are not evidence of weakness. They are passing phenomena, like wind moving through a valley. If you never controlled every action, then guilt softens too. The illusion lifts responsibility enough to reveal compassion. Perhaps everyone, including you, is less an author than a character carried forward by forces unseen. Yet, paradoxes remain. If you are not in control, who is listening to these words now? If thoughts unfold without you, why does it feel so vividly like you are here, choosing to stay, choosing to hear? Perhaps the illusion is not meant to be broken completely. Perhaps it is a veil you glimpse through now and then, enough to see the shadows beneath, but not enough to discard entirely. Imagine standing on a stage. The lights blind you, the audience waits. Lines leave your mouth, gestures flow from your body, movements rise without hesitation. You feel in command, but behind the curtain, a hidden director cues each act. You never see them, but you sense the script was not yours alone. The performance is yours, but the control was never entirely real. So the next time you tell yourself, I am in control, pause. Notice how much has already moved before you claim it. Notice how thought, action, word, and feeling arise like tides. You are not the captain of this ship. You are the passenger watching the waves, believing you steer. The illusion is powerful, but awareness of the illusion is deeper still. And yet the question lingers, looping back. If control is an illusion, what does it mean to live? Are you the dreamer of the dream, or only the dream itself unfolding? A thought arrives, unannounced. It whispers into the stillness of your mind like a visitor stepping through an unlocked door. You feel it form, solid and sharp. But when you reach for its origin, you grasp at air. Did you summon it? Did you design it? Or did it simply appear, carrying its own weight, indifferent to ownership? You live as if every thought belongs to you. The memory that returns at noon, the craving that rises at midnight, the worry that interrupts your sleep. You fold them all into your sense of self. These are my thoughts, you say. But pause and ask, what makes them yours? If you did not call them into being, if you cannot stop them from coming, if they vanish without your command, then in what sense do they belong to you at all? Philosophy has often pressed this question. In Buddhism, thoughts are described as passing clouds drifting across the sky of awareness, temporary, ungraspable, never owned. In Advaita Vedanta, the mantra repeats, you are not the mind. In modern philosophy of mind, the self is seen less as an origin, and more as a construct, woven out of processes that operate independently of what you call. If thoughts have no owner, then perhaps the self is not the landlord of the mind, but merely its most convinced tenant. Neuroscience echoes this suspicion. Brain scans reveal patterns of activity that predict a thought before it surfaces in awareness. Random firings ripple into coherence, and then suddenly you have the thought. But you were the last to know. Ownership comes after the fact. It is a stamp pressed onto a package already delivered. Your conscious mind claims authorship because it cannot imagine another explanation, but in truth, the delivery was automatic. Think about intrusive thoughts, those strange unwelcome bursts, an absurd image during a meeting, a sudden urge on a quiet walk, a fear that has no basis in the moment. They reveal the deeper truth. The mind generates content without your request. If every thought were truly yours, you would not be startled by your own imagination. Instead, thoughts feel more like strangers visiting your house. Some are familiar, some unsettling, some impossible to ignore. You may entertain them, resist them, or let them pass, but they arrive uninvited. Dreams make this clearer still. Entire conversations unfold while you sleep. Characters argue, landscapes form, choices are made. None of it is under your control. Yet when you awaken, the thoughts feel familiar, as though they belonged to you. But they didn't. They were creations of a mind that does not ask permission. If ownership is absent in dreams, why assume it is present when awake? Language complicates the illusion further. The words you think in are borrowed, inherited from culture, taught by parents, molded by education. Even the private phrases in your head are not original. They are echoes of countless voices you have heard. If your thoughts speak in a language you did not invent, how can they belong entirely to you? The mind is a library where books arrive daily, but you are not the author, you are the reader. Perhaps the arranger of shelves, but not the one who writes the lines. And yet, the illusion of ownership is persistent. It gives you a center, a sense of selfhood. Without it, the ground beneath identity begins to crumble. If thoughts are not yours, then what is left of you? Perhaps only the awareness that notices them, the silent witness who observes each idea come and go. But even here, the paradox deepens. If you are only the witness, why does the voice in your head sound like you? Why does it feel so intimate, so personal, so inseparable? This intimacy is the trick. Thoughts mirror your history, your habits, your fears. They wear the mask of ownership because they are sculpted by your past. Every memory, every experience, every encounter leaves an imprint that shapes the next thought. When the thought appears, it reflects those imprints, and so it feels like yours. But reflection is not creation. The mirror shows your face, but the mirror does not own it. Consider also how thoughts contradict themselves. One moment you desire something, the next you reject it. One day you resolve to change, the next you sabotage yourself. If thoughts were truly owned, truly commanded, they would not so often betray you. Instead, they clash, collide, and compete. You do not control them. You host them, and sometimes you are torn apart by them. Perhaps freedom lies not in claiming ownership, but in letting go of it. To see thoughts as visitors, not possessions, is to soften their grip. The cruel inner critic, the restless worry, the endless rehearsals of failure, they lose some of their power when you recognize they do not belong to you. They are weather systems passing through the sky. You do not own the storm. You endure it until it clears. But another paradox lingers in the silence. If thoughts are not yours, then who is hearing them now? If you are not the owner, then what role do you play? The answer slips through the mind, like water through open hands. You are not the thought, not the owner, not even the source. You are the space in which the thought arises, the silence that holds the voice. And in that silence, you begin to realize the voice was never yours at all. There are moments when thought seems to come from somewhere else, beyond the walls of your mind. You are walking or sitting or lying in the quiet, and suddenly a whisper arrives. It does not feel like yours. It feels older, stranger, carried on some unseen current. The mind tries to claim it, to fold it into the familiar narrative of my thought, my voice, myself. But for an instant, you know it didn't belong to you. It drifted in from beyond. Where is beyond? Neuroscience says the brain is a network of signals, endlessly recycling electrical sparks, weaving them into meaning. But can this explain the eerie quality of a thought that feels foreign? Perhaps it comes from layers of memory so deep you no longer recognize them as yours. Perhaps it is the echo of a word spoken years ago resurfacing without permission. Or perhaps it is something wider still, the murmur of culture, the endless stream of voices you've absorbed, reshaped, and now mistake for your own. You can test this in everyday life. Pay attention to the sudden images that burst into your awareness. The face of someone you haven't seen in years, the odd fragment of a song, the sentence that writes itself before you have time to resist. None of these feel commanded. They feel like whispers floating in from just outside your conscious door. You call them my thoughts, but are they not more like guests than possessions? Psychologists describe the unconscious as a vast reservoir where unprocessed experiences linger. These fragments rise without warning, shaping behavior long before you realize it. You think you decided, but in truth, you were nudged. A whisper guided you, and afterward you create the story. I wanted this. I chose this. I thought this, but the whisper was already there, moving you silently. And here's where I ask you, the one listening now, where are you in this moment? What time is it where you are? Pause, just for a breath, and notice this whisper of a question appeared in your mind without your control. It arrived here, now, asking you to notice your place in space and time. You didn't plan to think of your location, or of your clock, but suddenly you are. Doesn't it feel as though the thought was delivered, not authored? Philosophy deepens the puzzle. Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, patterns and archetypes shared across humanity, surfacing in dreams and myths. Perhaps the whisper beyond mind is not personal at all, but collective, a current of thought that flows through many, not one. When you dream of a stranger, when you think words in voices not your own, when you imagine places you have never been, are these not signs that thought is wider than the boundaries of self? Even language itself suggests this. Consider how your thoughts are shaped by words, and how those words existed before you. The phrase, I love you, the command, stand up, the quiet sentence, it is time, none were invented by you. They are borrowed from the world, carried into your mind, by countless mouths before yours. Every whisper in your head wears the accents of history. If thought requires language, and language is not yours, then perhaps no thought truly belongs to you. Dreams again reveal the strangeness. In sleep, voices speak with confidence, delivering knowledge you never studied, inventing characters you never designed. They speak as if they know you, yet they are not yours. The whisper beyond mind is clearest here. Waking, you dismiss it as imagination. But how different is it from the stray thought in daylight? Both arrive uninvited. Both vanish uncommanded. Both leave you wondering whose voice you have just heard. And still, the mind clings to ownership. It insists, these are mine, but try sitting in silence, letting the whispers arrive. They come like footsteps down a hall. One by one, they enter, and one by one they leave. Did you choose their arrival? Did you schedule their departure? You are the hall, not the walker. The silence, not the whisper. This realization can be frightening. If the whispers are not yours, then what are you? A vessel, a stage, a witness? And yet it can also be liberating. If you do not own every thought, then you are not defined by every whisper. You are not reduced to the critic in your head, or the fear that clings, or the doubt that returns. You are the space in which they pass, not the whispers themselves. But even this leads to another loop. If you are the space, then why do the whispers sound so personal, so intimate? Perhaps because the mind is not built to distinguish between ownership and presence. A thought arrives, and awareness fuses with it, as if to say, this is me. Only afterward can you peel away, noticing the whisper did not belong. The paradox sharpens. The whispers feel most yours when they are least commanded. They sound truest when they come from beyond. And yet the more you listen, the more you realize you are not their author. You are only their audience, sitting in silence while the performance unfolds. So tonight, as you hear these words, notice the whispers that rise inside you. They are not you, not yours, not authored by your command. They are echoes from memory, fragments from culture, ripples from the unconscious, vibrations from beyond. They are whispers, and you are the silence that holds them. Behind every scene of thought, behind every word and action, there is the sense of a hidden observer. You feel it when you pause, when you reflect, when you notice yourself noticing. It is the quiet presence behind the curtain, watching the play unfold. Yet when you search for this observer, it refuses to step into the light. You cannot see its face, cannot grasp its edges. All you find is the sense that someone is there, someone behind the curtain, pulling no strings, yet witnessing everything. This presence feels like you, not the noisy stream of thoughts, not the shifting moods, but the still watcher. You may call it self, or soul, or simply me. It feels stable, unchanging, the constant behind the chaos. But look closer, and you begin to see the cracks. For if the observer is real, why can it not be found? Why does it vanish the moment you try to hold it? Neuroscience complicates the picture. When researchers scan the brain, they find no single region that houses the observer. Awareness emerges not from one control center, but from the coordination of countless networks. Vision, memory, attention, language, all firing together, creating the sense of I am here. The observer behind the curtain may be nothing more than an illusion stitched from fragments, a spotlight with no actor, a curtain with no figure standing in the shadows. And yet, the illusion is powerful. Consider meditation. When you close your eyes and sit in silence, thoughts rise and fall, but something notices them. Fear arrives, and something sees it. Joy passes, and something sees it. A song drifts into memory, and something sees it. This something feels more enduring than the passing thoughts. You begin to think, this must be me, the true self, the one behind the curtain. But when you turn the gaze upon the gazer, there is nothing solid to find. Philosophy has chased this mystery for centuries. In Hindu thought, the observer is Atman, the eternal witness, identical with the ground of existence itself. In Buddhism, the teaching runs opposite. The observer is also an illusion, a trick of the mind. There is no enduring self, only a flow of processes. The curtain hides nothing. Western philosophers, too, wrestled with it. Hume called the self a bundle of perceptions with no underlying owner. Kant spoke of the transcendental unity of apperception, the necessary condition for experience, yet itself unknowable. In every tradition, the curtain remains, and the observer behind it slips away. Think of a theater. On stage, actors perform thoughts, emotions, sensations. You watch them, sometimes with fascination, sometimes with indifference, yet you also sense that someone is seated in the dark rows of the theater, watching the performance of your life. Who is that? You feel its presence, yet you cannot turn the lights to reveal it. The play is all you ever see. Dreams echo this paradox. In dreams, you act, you feel, you suffer, you rejoice. But even in the dream there is often a faint awareness. This is happening to me. The observer is there, even when reality dissolves, and upon waking, you carry that same feeling into the day. Whether in dream or waking, there is always the sense of someone behind the curtain. But when you search, when you rip the curtain aside, you find only more performance, more scenery, more play, never the watcher itself. Why then does the illusion persist? Perhaps because it holds experience together. Without the sense of an observer, the stream of consciousness would scatter into fragments. The curtain provides continuity, even if what stands behind it is empty. It is the stagecraft of survival. To make life feel coherent, someone must seem to be watching. This realization can shift how you see yourself. If the observer is only an appearance, then perhaps you are not a separate entity hidden behind the curtain, but the curtain itself, the stage, the whole play. You are not the watcher of life. You are life unfolding. The thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, the awareness of them, all of it is the performance, and there is no one beyond it. But even here, the paradox loops. For if you are not the observer, why do you still feel like one? Why do you still sense a witness behind every scene? Perhaps because the illusion cannot be escaped by thought. Thought itself is part of the play, part of the act. Every time you try to think your way to the observer, thought simply creates another actor, another mask, another curtain. The observer cannot be found because it was never separate. And so you live with the paradox. You are both actor and stage, both curtain and watcher. You are the one who sees, and yet there is no one behind the eyes. The observer is both illusion and truth. Illusion, because it cannot be located. Truth, because without it there would be no experience at all. Imagine sitting once more in silence. A thought appears, then fades. A memory arrives, then vanishes. Through it all, something notices. You try to name it, define it, capture it, but it dissolves into the flow, and still, it feels present, like a whisper behind the curtain. Perhaps that is all you will ever know. Not the face of the observer, but its endless suggestion. So tonight, as you listen, ask yourself, who is hearing these words now? The one behind the curtain, or the curtain itself? The observer, or the observation? The question lingers, unanswered, looping back into silence, and perhaps that silence is the only answer there will ever be. Every decision you make leaves behind an echo. It rings in your mind long after the moment has passed, replaying itself like a sound trapped in a canyon. Sometimes it comes as satisfaction, a gentle resonance that reassures you the choice was right. Other times it returns as doubt, a sharp echo that stings, reminding you of what could have been. These echoes do not simply reflect the past, they shape the future, influencing the next decision before you even realize it. You think you choose freely, but you are often reacting to echoes you cannot silence. Think of a simple choice: which seat to take in a crowded room. You might believe you chose casually, without thought. Yet if you listen carefully, you may sense the faint echoes guiding you. The memory of once sitting too close to the door, the subtle discomfort of being noticed, the old habit of drifting toward corners. Each decision is haunted by prior decisions, their reverberations shaping what you call preference. Neuroscience calls this priming. The brain is never blank, it carries residues of what came before. In experiments, participants shown a list of words are more likely to use those words in later tasks, even if they believe they are inventing something new. The echo is unconscious but powerful. Your decisions today echo with yesterday's exposures, yesterday's patterns, yesterday's whispers. You are not choosing in isolation. You are walking through a hall of reverberations. Consider also the phenomenon of regret. You make a choice, and later wonder, what if I had chosen differently? The mind replays the moment, echoing not with what happened, but with what never was. These phantom alternatives haunt your decisions as much as the real ones. They create ripples that spread outward, influencing new choices in subtle ways. Regret is not just memory, it is an echo that reshapes the present, a voice whispering through corridors of time. Philosophy has long explored this loop. Kierkegaard wrote of the dizziness of freedom, the vertigo you feel when faced with choice. Each decision excludes countless possibilities, yet their echoes linger, haunting the one path taken. Nietzsche urged the thought experiment of eternal recurrence. What if you had to live this exact life again forever? Would your decisions feel heavier, knowing their echoes would repeat infinitely? Each philosopher points to the same truth: decisions never vanish. They echo endlessly, even when you wish them silent. Think also of how culture and family echo in your choices. The food you crave, the words you use, the beliefs you carry. They were not chosen in a vacuum. They are echoes of others' decisions, passed down through time. A parent chooses a tradition, and it echoes into you. A society builds a norm, and it echoes through your behavior. Even rebellion is an echo, defined not by freedom but by resistance to what came before. Your decision to reject something is still shaped by its sound lingering in the background. Dreams reveal this truth in another way. Often, the scenarios you dream are echoes of waking life, distorted but recognizable. A conversation you had in the day echoes in a new form at night. A fear you buried echoes back as nightmare. Even in sleep, the mind does not create from nothing. It reverberates with fragments, repeating them in strange patterns. If dreams are echoes of decisions and experiences, perhaps waking life is not so different. Perhaps it is all resonance. But why does the mind cling to these echoes? Maybe because they give continuity. Without them, each decision would vanish into nothingness, leaving you disoriented. Echoes stitch your story together. You look back and feel a line connecting one choice to another, as if they were threads weaving into identity. Yet the paradox remains: the echoes create the illusion of coherence, but they also trap you. You cannot escape their pull, even when you believe you are choosing fresh. Consider addiction once again. The first decision, the first drink, the first gamble, the first indulgence, leaves a powerful echo. Each repetition amplifies it, until the echo becomes deafening. Future choices are no longer free, they are reverberations of the past. The addict believes they are choosing, but in reality, the echo chooses for them. This is not unique to addiction. Habits of all kinds echo in your life, guiding your actions silently, long after the initial decision is forgotten. And then there is morality. You decide to act kindly, or cruelly, and the echo shapes not only your self-image, but the expectations of others. Each moral choice reverberates into relationships, echoing in trust or suspicion, gratitude or resentment. You carry these echoes with you, sometimes for a lifetime. The person who forgave once feels the echo of forgiveness return. The person who betrayed once feels the echo of betrayal linger. Decisions outlive themselves through echoes in memory, in others, in culture. Is there a way to silence them? Some spiritual traditions say yes. Meditation invites you to watch thoughts and choices dissolve, to rest in awareness without attachment to echoes. In those rare moments of stillness, decisions feel lighter, less bound by past reverberations. Yet even then, the echo waits, returning the moment awareness stirs again. Perhaps the goal is not silence but understanding, to hear the echoes for what they are, without mistaking them for fresh creation. And here lies the paradox once more. If your decisions are shaped by echoes, are you truly deciding, or are you merely listening to reverberations and calling them choice? If so, then what is left of freedom? Maybe freedom is not the absence of echoes, but the ability to hear them clearly. To recognize their presence is to loosen their grip. You may not escape them, but you can watch them, and in that watching, a gentler kind of agency appears. So pause now, and listen. Behind the thought you just had, can you hear the echo of another thought, older, fainter, guiding it here? Behind the choice you prepare to make tomorrow, can you sense the reverberation of choices past, still shaping you? The echoes of decisions are endless. They form the music of your mind, and you, the listener, live inside their song. Dreams are often dismissed as fragments of sleep, strange stories spun by a restless brain. Yet look closely, and you begin to see their influence stretching into the daylight. A dream may vanish with the morning light, but its traces linger. They steer your actions in ways so subtle you rarely notice. You walk through the day shaped by echoes of dreams you cannot fully recall. Think of how a nightmare affects you. You wake uneasy, though no danger exists. The body carries tension. The heart beats faster. The mind circles in vigilance. Your actions follow. You cancel a plan, avoid a conversation, linger in safety. Did you decide these things freely? Or did the dream, like a hidden script, steer you? Even forgotten dreams leave traces. Research shows that mood, memory, and behavior can be altered by dreams you cannot consciously remember. The unseen narrative still directs you. Consider also the way dreams rehearse actions. Athletes dream of performing, and later their bodies move with sharper skill. Students dream of studying, and later recall facts with more ease. The dream, unbidden, has already practiced what the waking self believes it must decide. When you act, it feels deliberate, but the groundwork was laid elsewhere. The dream has already steered. Philosophy has long wondered about the boundary between dream and waking. Descartes asked how one could ever be sure this moment is not also a dream. If dreams can so closely resemble reality, what prevents waking from being another layer of illusion? And if actions in dreams feel real, running, speaking, choosing, then perhaps waking actions are not as free as they seem. Both may be streams unfolding without command, both guided by currents deeper than awareness. Think of déjà vu. You enter a place and feel you have been there before. Some researchers suggest it may be linked to dreams, moments rehearsed in sleep, resurfacing as uncanny familiarity. If so, then dreams do not only steer actions but also shape perceptions of time and memory. You feel the echo of a scene, and it bends how you act in the present. You hesitate, you question, you move differently, all because of a dream that slipped through the cracks of recall. Dreams also reveal hidden fears and desires. The argument you never voiced surfaces in sleep. The longing you suppressed plays out in nocturnal theater. Waking, you may dismiss the imagery, yet the emotional residue lingers. You avoid a person, pursue an opportunity, shift your path. These choices feel like yours, but they are guided by dreams whispering beneath awareness. The unconscious has already decided what matters. Modern neuroscience describes dreams as simulations. The brain rehearses scenarios, threats, challenges, possibilities, preparing you to act. In evolutionary terms, dreams may have served as practice for survival. The hunter dreams of danger, the parent dreams of loss, the wanderer dreams of paths unknown. By simulating, the brain steers future action without asking permission. The waking decision is already conditioned. You call it instinct or choice, but it was rehearsed long before. And yet, dreams are not merely functional. They also destabilize the notion of ownership. Who writes the script of your dream? Who designs the characters, the landscapes, the dialogue? Not you, at least, not the conscious you who listens now. The dream composes itself. You are both participant and audience. You live through actions that are not chosen, yet feel entirely yours. This paradox bleeds into waking life. If dreams steer without consent, how certain are you that waking choices are different? Spiritual traditions often treat dreams as gateways. In some, they are messages from beyond, guiding the path of the dreamer. In others, they are illusions meant to remind us that waking life is also a dream. Either way, they steer. The dreamer wakes with a conviction, a fear, a revelation. Actions follow. The boundary between dream and life grows thin until the two reflect one another endlessly. Even art and culture carry this truth. How many stories, Inventions and discoveries began as dreams. Kekulé's vision of the benzene ring, Coleridge's poem Kubla Khan, countless works of art traced to visions in sleep. Dreams did not merely inspire, they directed waking hands. The actions of history were steered by nocturnal whispers. If great discoveries and creations arise from dreams, then perhaps every small decision is influenced too. But why do you cling to the belief that waking life is fully your own? Perhaps because dreams expose how fragile control really is. In dreams you watch yourself act without choice, speak without rehearsal, move without command. Waking, you insist you are different. Yet the mechanics may be the same, unconscious processes steering action, with awareness arriving afterward to claim ownership. Dreams only make the hidden truth visible. So pause here, and reflect. Think of a dream you once had, a vivid scene perhaps long ago. Notice how it shaped something afterward, a mood, a fear, a desire, a decision. Even if faint, the influence lingers. Dreams are not separate from life. They are currents in the same river, steering you even as you insist you are steering yourself. And here lies the paradox. If dreams steer actions and waking choices are not so different, then perhaps all of life is dreamlike, a sequence unfolding without control. You may feel awake, but how do you know? You may feel in charge, but what if you are simply following a script rehearsed in sleep, rehearsed in memory, rehearsed in echoes beyond awareness? So tonight, as you drift between waking and dreaming, consider this: the actions you call yours may already be written in the whispers of sleep, and the dream steering you now may never end, not even when you open your eyes. You walk a path each day, not the one your feet take through streets and hallways, but the one your mind takes through thought. This mental path feels like yours. You trace it, repeat it, wander it, as if you were the builder of its stones. Yet pause and look closely, and you may notice the unsettling truth: the path was never claimed. It was laid down long before you thought to walk it. You are not the architect, only the traveler, moving along grooves you cannot see. Think about the habits of your thought. The way worry repeats itself, circling back to the same fears. The way desire takes you down familiar roads, pulling you toward images, cravings, dreams. The way memory insists on revisiting the same moments, as if replaying them could change what happened. These paths are not freshly chosen each time. They are carved into you by years of repetition. You believe you wander freely, but you walk within tracks already worn deep. Neuroscience calls these tracks neural pathways. Each thought strengthens connections, making it easier for the same thought to return. A worry rehearsed becomes a worry automatic. A judgment repeated becomes instinct. Like footsteps on soil, the path deepens with use. Soon you no longer decide to walk it. You simply find yourself there. The path is unclaimed, yet it shapes where your mind travels every day. Consider language again. When you search for words, you do not create them from nothing. You follow well-worn trails of vocabulary, patterns built over years of speech. Even your creativity moves within these invisible paths, borrowing, rearranging, recombining. What you call originality is often a new route along old tracks. The mental path beneath each thought is not yours to claim. It belongs to culture, to memory, to the vast machinery of mind unfolding through time. Philosophy deepens this unease. Sartre spoke of bad faith, the self-deception of believing you are fully free, while ignoring the forces that guide you. Freud described the unconscious as the true architect, shaping desires long before the conscious self notices them. Buddhist thought goes further still. The path of mind is unclaimed because there is no enduring owner at all. The walker and the path are both illusions, temporary formations rising and falling together. And yet, the illusion of ownership is comforting. Without it, you might feel lost, like a wanderer with no ground beneath your feet. To believe the path is yours gives stability, coherence, purpose. You say, I chose this thought, I built this habit, I made this decision. But look again. How often have you found yourself thinking something you swore you would not? How often have you returned to a path you vowed to abandon? The illusion of ownership breaks, and you see the truth. You walk an unclaimed road. Dreams reveal this clearly. You drift into sleep and find yourself in places you never chose, moving along paths you never designed. You run, you fall, you speak, you search. The dream unfolds, and you follow. Waking, you dismiss it as fiction. But how different is waking life? Both carry you down unclaimed mental paths. Both unfold without your control. The only difference is that you cling to ownership in daylight, while in dreams you know you have none. Even memory betrays you here. You believe you choose which memories to revisit, but often they return uninvited, dragging you down paths you wished to avoid. An old argument resurfaces, a lost love haunts, a childhood moment flashes. You did not summon them, they appeared, and you walked with them. The path was already there, waiting. You had no claim over its return. So what does this mean for freedom? If the paths of thought are unclaimed, are you merely a traveler with no map? Perhaps freedom does not lie in owning the path, but in noticing it. To see the grooves, to watch yourself walk them, is to gain a new kind of perspective. You may not erase the path, but you can step lightly, aware of its pull. Awareness itself becomes a lantern, illuminating the road even if you did not choose where it runs. But the paradox lingers. If awareness notices, is awareness itself walking a path already laid? Perhaps even noticing is unclaimed, part of the same unfolding. If so, then there is no escape from the labyrinth of the mind. Every road, every turn, every glimpse of freedom is part of the same unclaimed design. The traveler is not separate from the path. The traveler is the path. Still, there is a strange peace in this realization. If you are not the owner, then you are not the prisoner either. The path may not be yours, but neither are its burdens. The cruel thoughts, the anxious loops, the restless cravings, they are not possessions you must defend. They are roads that appear beneath your feet, then vanish. You need not claim them. You need only walk, and watch, and let them pass. So tonight, as you listen, notice the path your mind is walking even now. The rhythm of these words becomes its stones. The echoes of your own thoughts become its turns. You did not choose this path. You did not claim it, and yet here you are, walking it all the same. The unclaimed mental path is not a flaw. It is the very fabric of thought. To see it clearly is to step into the mystery of being carried. The self you carry feels solid, permanent, familiar. You say I with certainty, believing you know who speaks. Yet this self is not what it seems. It wears masks, it shifts in form, it cloaks itself in roles and stories. What you call me is often nothing more than a disguise, a performance stitched together to convince both the world and yourself that someone stable exists behind it all. Think of how you act in different places. At work you speak one way, with friends, another, with family, yet another. Each feels natural, as if they were all the same self, yet they contradict and overlap. Which one is truly you? Or are all of them costumes worn by something deeper, something you cannot quite see? The self presents itself as unity, but it is a mosaic of disguises. Neuroscience reflects this instability. The brain does not have a single command center. It is a network of competing processes, memory, emotion, perception, habit, all vying for influence. At any moment, one process rises and calls itself I, another takes over later, equally convinced of its ownership. The self is not a monarch, but a parliament of shifting voices. The disguise is the illusion of unity, hiding the chaos beneath. Philosophy echoes this suspicion. Hume declared the self a bundle of perceptions, with no core beneath them. Nietzsche spoke of masks, not as falsehoods, but as necessary. To live is to perform, to disguise, to create selves for each moment. Buddhism goes further. The self is not only a disguise, but a complete illusion. Strip away the roles, the memories, the habits, and there is no permanent entity left. The self is like a play without an actor. The performance is all there is. Dreams reveal this clearly. In them you play countless roles: hero, victim, stranger, even people you have never met. Each feels convincingly like you while the dream unfolds. But upon waking, you see the trick. The dream invented selves and you believed them. Waking life is not so different. You wear the role of thinker, doer, chooser. You call it myself. But like the dream, it may be a disguise worn by something emptier than you wish to believe. Consider memory's role in this disguise. You tell yourself, I am this person, with this history. Yet memory is unreliable. Studies show how easily it reshapes, edits, invents. Your past is not a stable foundation, but a story you keep rewriting. The self that claims to be consistent is really a storyteller, hiding gaps and stitching together fragments. The disguise is not just outward, it is inward, a mask you wear for yourself. Even language reinforces the illusion. You say I decided, I thought, I felt. The word I disguises the complexity beneath it. It compresses countless processes into a single mask. It pretends unity where there is only multiplicity. The simplicity of the word hides the chaos of the mind. Without this disguise, perhaps identity would feel too fractured, too unstable to bear. Yet the disguise is not meaningless. It gives coherence, a way to navigate the world, to believe you are one self, allows you to plan, to connect, to love, but the cost of the disguise is forgetting its nature. You come to believe the mask is the face, the story is the truth, the performance is the essence, and in doing so, you lose sight of the deeper paradox, that there may be no true self beneath the disguise at all. Still, ask yourself, when you feel shame, who is ashamed? When you feel pride, who swells with it? When you feel fear, who trembles? Each answer points back to me, yet that me shifts endlessly. It is never the same, in 2 moments. It is a voice that insists on continuity while constantly changing clothes. The self in disguise convinces you of its permanence even as it vanishes between breaths. Think of how children grow. The self of a child is not the self of a teenager, nor the self of an adult. Yet you insist they are the same person. The disguise evolves, layer by layer, and you call it identity. But continuity is an illusion stitched together by memory and story. The self in disguise is not a lie, it is a necessity, a mask you must wear to feel like you exist. And yet, if the self is only disguise, who is listening now? Who hears these words? Perhaps it is not one enduring self, but the current mask, the present configuration of memory, emotion, attention. Tomorrow, another self will listen, equally convinced it is the same you, but the continuity is the disguise, the mask that makes change invisible. This realization can unsettle, but it can also soften. If the self is disguise, then you need not cling to every mask. The harsh critic, the fearful voice, the restless doubter, these too are roles, temporary costumes. You need not mistake them for the true self. You can watch them come and go, knowing they are disguises, not essence. Still, the paradox loops. If the self is only disguise, then who wears the mask? Is there an actor beneath? Or is the mask all there is, performing endlessly with no face behind it? You search for the wearer, but the search reveals only more masks, more disguises. The truth may be that there is no one behind the curtain, no stable self at all. The disguise is not covering anything, it is the only thing there is. So tonight, as you reflect, notice the self you are wearing now. Notice how it feels permanent, yet know it will shift by morning. Notice how every role, every thought, every feeling claims to be you, yet none endure. The self is a disguise, and you are the play in which it appears. And perhaps the deepest mystery is this: the disguise works so well that even knowing it is a disguise, you still believe. Every moment feels new, as if you stand on the edge of creation, choosing words, gestures, and paths as they unfold. Yet beneath this freshness lies a haunting suspicion. The script may already be written. Each line you speak, each thought you claim, each action you perform could be part of a story long set in motion, unfolding not by your command, but by design invisible to you. You are not the author, you are the actor, reading lines placed in your mouth before you even knew how to speak. Think about déjà vu, that eerie sensation of living a moment twice. You step into a room, hear a phrase, see a gesture, and you feel you have been here before. Science offers theories, memory glitches, misfired recognition, but the feeling suggests something deeper. Perhaps you are walking through a script already rehearsed. The lines feel familiar because they were never new. They were written, and now you are catching up to them. Neuroscience lends weight to this suspicion. In experiments measuring brain activity, decisions appear in neural signals before subjects become aware of choosing. A flicker in the brain predicts the decision, and awareness arrives afterward, claiming ownership. You believe you authored the line, but the script was already on the page. Consciousness is less a writer than a reader, narrating a play performed in silence before it ever reached awareness. Philosophy too circles this paradox. The Stoics believed in fate, an order of events written into the cosmos itself. Spinoza argued that everything follows from the nature of existence with necessity, leaving no room for free will. Schopenhauer claimed you may do what you will, but you cannot will what you will. Even modern determinism echoes this. Every action arises from causes before you, stretching back infinitely. If all is cause and effect, then every line of your story was scripted long ago. But then arises the question, if the script is already written, Why does it feel like improvisation? Why does each moment carry the vivid sense of choice? Perhaps because the illusion of authorship is necessary. An actor must believe in the role to play it well. The illusion of improvisation gives life its urgency, even if the lines were written before you entered the stage. Without the sense of freedom, the performance would collapse. Dreams make this clearer. In dreams, you act, speak, and decide. Yet when you wake, you realize the entire dream was scripted by the unconscious, not by you. You lived the script as though you were improvising, yet it was already written in the silent machinery of the brain. Waking life may not differ as much as you hope. Both are scripts revealed in real time, with the illusion of creation draped across them. Even culture reveals this pattern. The words you speak, the stories you tell, the values you hold, all were written long before you. You inherit them from parents, teachers, traditions, books, media. You imagine your opinions are fresh, but they echo centuries of thought, rehearsed by countless voices. Your individuality is a collage of scripts, stitched together from lines you did not write. Consider memory again. When you recall the past, you believe you are retrieving truth. Yet memory is reconstructed each time, rewritten by the present. The past itself is a script rewritten constantly, shaping the next act of your story. You live not in a free improvisation, but in a play that edits itself, convincing you of continuity while always following the unseen structure beneath. This realization can feel suffocating. If all is written, what is the point of effort, of struggle, of choice? But it can also feel freeing. If the script is written, then the burden of authorship is lifted. You are not guilty for every mistake, not responsible for every shadowed thought. You are a character in a cosmic play, carried forward by the script of existence itself, and perhaps that allows you to live with more gentleness, toward yourself, toward others, toward the endless unfolding. And yet, the paradox refuses to rest. If the script is written, then even the awareness of it is part of the script. Even the resistance, the desire for freedom, the sense of despair or liberation, all are lines already inscribed. You cannot escape the play, because even your attempt to step off stage is scripted. The realization folds in on itself, recursive and inescapable. Still, imagine this. You sit in a theater, watching a performance. The actors deliver their lines with conviction. You know they are following a script, but the illusion of spontaneity draws you in. You weep, you laugh, you feel suspense. The power of the play is not diminished by knowing it is written. In fact, the artistry lies in the illusion of freedom within the script. Perhaps life is no different. The beauty is not in authoring the story, but in inhabiting it fully, as though it were yours. So tonight, as you hear these words, notice the sense of improvisation rising within you. Notice how each thought feels new, as if it belongs to this moment alone. And then consider the possibility that the lines are already written, unfolding exactly as they must. You may not be the author, but you are the voice that brings the script to life. And perhaps that is enough. Awareness feels effortless, like a light that simply shines. You open your eyes, and the world appears. You think a thought, and it is illuminated. You feel an emotion, and suddenly you are bathed in its presence. Awareness feels natural, immediate, obvious. But behind this simplicity lies a complex machine, a vast network of processes that grind, spark, and hum in ways you cannot see. What you call consciousness may be less a mystical flame, and more the machinery of awareness, endlessly working behind the curtain. Consider sight. You look at an object and believe you simply see it, but the machinery of awareness tells another story. Light bounces, enters the eye, strikes the retina, becomes electrical impulses. The brain inverts, filters, assembles, colors, and fills gaps. By the time you are aware of a chair or a tree, the machine has already processed countless steps. Awareness arrives late, presented with the finished product, while the machinery works invisibly beneath. Think also of choice. You believe you decide, then act. Yet studies show awareness lags behind neural activity. The brain prepares, initiates, predicts, and only afterward do you feel, I chose this. Awareness is a summary, not an origin. The machinery writes the script, and awareness reads it aloud, like a news anchor reporting events already decided. Awareness gives the illusion of command while functioning as narration. Philosophy wrestles with this machine-like quality. Descartes imagined the self as an indivisible essence, but later thinkers like Dennett describe consciousness as a user interface, a simplified model the brain creates for itself. Awareness is not the core of being but the dashboard of a machine too complex to grasp. What you experience as me may be the output of machinery humming without pause, translating chaos into coherence. And yet, the machinery is not cold. It does not strip life of wonder. If anything, it deepens it. Think of music. You hear a melody and feel emotion rise. Neuroscience reveals neural circuits, analyzing rhythm, predicting patterns, releasing dopamine when surprises arrive. The machinery shapes the pleasure, but knowing this does not diminish the beauty. It heightens it. Awareness is not less miraculous, because it is built of parts. The machine itself is astonishing, endlessly intricate, endlessly alive. Dreams once again reveal the machinery at work. In sleep, awareness shifts. The brain continues processing, memories are sorted, emotions replayed, neural connections strengthened. Dreams are the machine's language, showing how awareness can be reshaped without your command. You wake and say, "I dreamed this," but it was the machinery speaking in symbols, keeping the system alive. Awareness rides on its currents, never steering them. Consider also how fragile awareness is. A blow to the head, a drug, a seizure, a chemical imbalance, and the machinery shifts. Awareness flickers, fragments, vanishes. If awareness were a pure essence, untouched and eternal, why would it be so vulnerable to changes in the machine? The fragility suggests dependence. The light shines only as long as the machine runs. This realization can be unsettling. If awareness is machinery, then perhaps the self is no more than a system of functions. Perhaps there is no ghost in the machine, only the machine itself. And yet, does that not make the machine itself sacred? Billions of neurons, firing in endless complexity, conjuring the illusion of a stable world, of a stable self. The machinery of awareness is not lifeless. It is the very miracle of life. But another paradox arises. If awareness is machinery, then who is noticing the machinery now? If all you are is function, then who watches the functions unfold? The recursive loop begins. Awareness seems both product and witness. The machine produces experience, but the experience includes seeing the machine. The system observes itself, and in that observation, feels like something more. Culture and language reinforce this machinery. From birth, awareness is shaped by categories, words, structures handed down. A child learns tree, and suddenly awareness of green and branch is filtered into a concept. The machinery incorporates language, and awareness becomes a web of symbols. What you call reality is already filtered, already processed, already machine-made. You never see the raw world. You see the translation created by awareness machinery. Even morality and identity run on these gears. You think, I am good, I am bad, I am kind, I am cruel. But each of these is a product of conditioning, memory, social training, biological impulse. The machine hums, and awareness reports. You feel ownership, but the process is automatic. Awareness is the face the machinery shows itself, a mask it wears so it can believe in a stable center. Yet paradox again, if awareness is machinery, why does it feel like silence? Why does it feel like stillness behind the noise? Machines are loud, mechanical, clattering. Awareness feels like the opposite, quiet, spacious, open. Perhaps the machinery is not opposed to silence, but the creator of it. By filtering, by shaping, by selecting, the machinery gives rise to the space in which thought appears. The silence is manufactured, yet it feels eternal. So where does this leave you? Are you the machine, the awareness it produces, or both? Perhaps you are the hum of the system, the echo of its workings. Perhaps you are not the ghost inside the machine, but the song the machine plays, endlessly shifting, endlessly arising. The machinery is not separate from you. It is you, and you are it. So tonight, as you rest, notice awareness itself. Notice how it feels immediate, yet know it is machinery at work. Notice how every sight, every thought, every feeling is a product, delivered by processes you cannot see. You are not the controller of this machine. You are its display, its witness, its song. And yet, the paradox remains, if you are the machinery, who is listening now? Memory feels like a treasure chest. You open at will. You believe it stores your past faithfully, that its contents belong uniquely to you. You reach inside, pull out an image, and say, this is mine, this happened to me. Yet the closer you look, the less solid memory becomes. Memories shift, distort, fade, and reappear with new details. They are not possessions, not unchanging artifacts. They are stories rewritten each time they are recalled, and sometimes they may not even be yours. Psychology reveals how fragile memory truly is. In experiments, people have been convinced they saw events that never occurred. A researcher plants a suggestion, a lost trip to a mall, an encounter with someone who never existed. And soon, the subject recalls the false memory vividly, with emotional conviction. They believe the memory belongs to them, when in truth it was constructed from fragments of imagination, influence, and trust. If memory can be borrowed or fabricated, then what does it mean to say it is yours? Think of photographs. You look at an old picture, and suddenly recall the moment. But was the memory yours, or was it shaped by the image? Many childhood memories are actually reconstructions built from stories told by parents, pictures seen later, or anecdotes repeated at family gatherings. You carry them as though they were lived, yet they may be second-hand. They are borrowed memories, stitched into your identity, as if they were your own. Neuroscience shows memory is not retrieval but reconstruction. Each time you recall, you rebuild the experience, influenced by mood, context, and suggestion. The memory shifts, becoming less the event itself, and more a reflection of who you are now. You think, I remember this, but what you remember may be a blend of truth and invention. Ownership becomes murky. The memory feels like yours, yet its content may have been rewritten so many times that no original remains. Philosophy sharpens the paradox. Locke argued memory is the foundation of personal identity. To remember is to be the same person. But what happens if memories are false, borrowed, or altered? Does identity collapse? Or was it always unstable, built on shifting ground? If your self depends on memory, and memory cannot be trusted, then perhaps the self itself is an illusion, a story told through echoes that were never fully yours. Consider dreams. They often weave memories into new forms, mixing real and imagined fragments. You dream of a street you once walked, but populated with strangers who never existed. You dream of an event long past, but with details altered, faces rearranged. The dream borrows memory and reshapes it into fiction. Yet upon waking, the dream can bleed into reality. You recall the dream as though it were a memory, and sometimes you cannot distinguish the two, which belongs to you and which does not. Culture complicates this further. You may carry memories of events you never lived, because society told you the story so often it became part of you. Wars you never fought, places you never visited, histories you never witnessed, yet you remember them through films, books, or collective narratives. These cultural memories shape your identity, your values, your choices. They steer you as though they were your own. If your mind is filled with memories not yours, then how much of you is truly personal? Even emotion betrays the illusion. Sometimes you feel grief for an ancestor's suffering, pride for a nation's triumph, fear from a story told by others. These feelings arise from memories you never lived. They feel authentic, embodied, deeply yours, but they are inherited. They belong to others, yet they flow through you as though you owned them. The self you cling to is crowded with memories borrowed from countless voices. And yet, ownership still feels real. You point to a childhood toy, a scar, a song, and insist, that is my memory. Perhaps this insistence is necessary. Without it, your identity might dissolve. If every memory is uncertain, shifting, or borrowed, then who are you? You may be little more than a vessel where memories pass through, attaching themselves temporarily before moving on. Still, the paradox deepens. If memories are not yours, then why do they feel so intimate? Why do they carry such weight, such power? Perhaps because the mind does not care about truth or ownership. It cares about coherence. A memory, even if false, provides continuity. It makes the story of your life feel whole. The illusion of ownership gives stability, even if the memory itself is borrowed. So where does this leave you? Are you the sum of memories, even if they are not yours? Or are you something beyond memory, the awareness in which they appear? If you are the awareness, then memories are like visitors, each claiming to belong, each whispering, I am you. But none stay forever, and none can prove their origin. Tonight, pause and reflect on your own memories. Think of one you hold dear. Ask yourself, how much of it is true? How much was shaped by retelling, by photographs, by imagination? What if parts of it were never yours to begin with? Notice how unsettling the question feels, and how quickly the mind resists it. The self depends on memory, and memory depends on ownership. Without it, the ground shifts beneath your feet. But perhaps that is the point. To see memory as unclaimed is to see the self as porous, open, connected. You are not a sealed vault of personal experience. You are a network of borrowed echoes, stitched together into a story that feels whole. The memories may not be yours, but they are you all the same. And perhaps in the end, that is enough. Consciousness feels like freedom, like an open sky, in which thoughts, choices, and actions move without constraint. Yet look closely, and you begin to see threads, subtle, invisible. They pull at every movement, every thought, every word. You are the puppet who believes himself free, unaware of the strings guiding his gestures. The stage of life looks vast, but above it, unseen, the strings stretch into shadows. Think of desire. You believe you choose what you want, a meal, a partner, a dream to pursue. But those wants were planted by biology, culture, memory. Hunger steers you toward food, long before you call it choice. Attraction follows patterns of survival, written in genes. Ambition reflects values instilled by family or society. The string is already pulling when you whisper, "I chose this." Consciousness is less freedom than a dance already choreographed, each step guided by forces beyond awareness. Neuroscience makes the strings visible. The brain prepares for action milliseconds before you feel the decision. Activity in motor regions predicts the choice before the self claims authorship. Experiments with readiness potentials expose the delay. Consciousness does not command the body, but interprets what the body has already begun. The puppet moves, then explains the movement. The strings tug, and consciousness invents a story of freedom. Philosophy has long sensed this tension. Schopenhauer wrote, "Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." The will itself is a string, pulled by causes older than the self. Spinoza called freedom the recognition of necessity, the awareness that the strings are not broken but understood. Even modern thought echoes this. The brain is a prediction machine, running simulations that guide behavior before awareness steps in. The string is not an exception, it is the rule. Dreams reveal the strings most clearly. In dreams, you act, you feel, you speak, but none of it is chosen. The dream moves you along its script, pulling you with invisible threads. Yet while dreaming, you feel free. Only upon waking do you realize the strings were everywhere, and then you enter waking life, equally convinced of freedom, equally blind to the strings. The boundary between dream and wake is thinner than you believe. Both are performances on strings. Even memory acts as a string. You recall a past failure, and suddenly your choices shift. You avoid, hesitate, or cling to familiar ground. You recall a success, and confidence carries you forward. The past tugs on the present, shaping behavior. You call it learning, but it is also pulling. The string of memory ties you to patterns you cannot cut. Culture weaves even stronger strings. The language you think in, the roles you play, the beliefs you inherit, all shape the structure of your awareness. You cannot think outside of language, cannot step outside of symbols given to you. The puppet moves within the script society wrote. Even rebellion is part of the pattern, a reaction already predicted by the strings that bind. But if consciousness is on strings, does that mean freedom is impossible? Perhaps not. Perhaps freedom is not the absence of strings, but the recognition of them. To see how thought, desire, and action are pulled is to loosen their hold. You may not cut the strings, but you can witness them. The puppet who sees the strings dances differently, not with control but with awareness. Yet, even this folds into paradox. If the recognition of strings arises, was it not also pulled by strings? If awareness itself is determined, then the very act of noticing is scripted. You cannot escape the strings, because every step of escape is itself a tug. The loop closes. The puppet sees, but the seeing is also part of the performance. Consider music. A violin sings because of strings pulled taut, vibrating with precision. Without strings there is no sound. Perhaps consciousness works the same. The strings are not prisons but instruments. They give structure, resonance, harmony. What feels like limitation may also be creation. Without strings, consciousness might not exist at all. The puppet moves because the strings make movement possible. This reframes the question. Instead of asking, "How can I be free from strings?" perhaps ask, "What music are these strings creating?" Instead of resisting, listen. The strings shape your thoughts, your choices, your life, and in their vibrations, a song arises. That song is consciousness, fragile, fleeting, yet astonishing. Still, the question lingers, who pulls the strings? Is it biology, culture, memory, chance, or something deeper, hidden in the fabric of existence? Science names causes, philosophy names necessity, spirituality names fate or divine order. Each is an attempt to glimpse the puppeteer, but the truth may be that no single hand pulls. The strings may pull themselves, an endless web without origin, and you, the consciousness they move, are simply their song. So pause now. Feel the strings of memory, culture, desire, biology, pulling quietly. Notice how your very listening is shaped by them. You did not choose these words to enter your awareness. You did not choose the thought that followed. The strings move, and you move with them. Consciousness on strings is not less real, it is the reality itself. And perhaps that is the deepest paradox, to know you are on strings, and yet to feel free, to see the threads, and still to dance. Every question that rises in your mind feels like your own. You ask, why am I here? What should I do? What does this mean? The questions appear, urgent and pressing, and you claim them as personal creations. Yet if you listen carefully, you may notice something strange. Questions arrive unbidden. You do not choose them. They emerge like birds from the shadows, perching in your awareness without warning, and when you try to find their author, there is none. Think of a moment of sudden doubt. You are speaking, confident, certain, and then a question surfaces. Am I wrong? Did you design that? Or did it simply burst into the silence, disrupting your certainty? The question feels like yours, but you did not command it. It came from somewhere else. Memory, culture, instinct, unconscious rumbling, anywhere but conscious choice. Neuroscience suggests questions may be patterns of prediction, generated automatically by the brain. The mind is a machine of anticipation, forever comparing what is to what could be. When gaps appear, the brain fills them with questions. What caused this? What comes next? What must I do? Awareness arrives only afterward, claiming authorship. You believe you asked the question, but the machinery had already formed it. You are the audience, not the author. Philosophy deepens the puzzle. Socrates built an entire method around questions, yet he claimed wisdom was not in having answers, but in recognizing ignorance. But who notices ignorance? Who poses the question? What is justice? What is truth? Perhaps not Socrates himself, but the collective voice of humanity, echoing through him. Questions may not belong to individuals at all. They may be cultural artifacts, passing through minds like travelers, seeking hosts to voice them. Consider childhood. Children ask endless questions. Why is the sky blue? Why do we die? These questions feel spontaneous, but they are shaped by environment, by the language given, by the concepts available. A child in another time, another culture, would ask differently. The questions are not authored privately, they are generated collectively, arising from the structure of thought itself. Even your deepest questions are not yours alone. They are ancient echoes, repeated across centuries, disguising themselves as your voice. Dreams reveal this too. In dreams, questions appear without effort. You wonder why you are lost, why someone chases you, why the world bends in strange ways. You never decided to ask. The dream asked for you. You are swept along, responding to inquiries you did not create. Waking, the process continues. Questions bloom, and you claim them, but in truth, they sprout from ground you cannot see. Even memory acts as a source. A past failure returns, and suddenly the question rises. What if it happens again? You did not choose to ask. The memory tugged, and the question followed. Similarly, future anticipation creates its own questions. What if I succeed? What if I fail? What will tomorrow bring? Time itself plants the questions. You are the soil, not the gardener. But if questions are without author, what does that mean for answers? When you answer, do you truly solve, or do you simply continue the chain of automatic responses? Each answer births another question. The process loops endlessly, suggesting there was never an origin, never a first author. Questions generate questions, and you are swept in the stream. This can be unsettling. If the questions are not yours, then what of your deepest inquiries? About meaning, purpose, identity? Were they not personal, sacred? Perhaps they feel so because they are universal. The question, who am I, does not belong to you alone. It has passed through countless minds before yours, and will pass through countless more. You did not create it. You are simply its temporary host. And yet, There is liberation in this. If the questions are not authored, you need not cling to them as proof of self. You are not diminished by realizing you did not create them. Instead, you are connected to history, to culture, to the collective stream of humanity. You are part of a chorus, voicing questions older than you, questions that echo across generations. Still, the paradox remains. If no one authors the questions, why do they feel so intimate? Why does the question, "Am I loved?" pierce so deeply? Perhaps because the mind fuses ownership with experience. A question arises in awareness, and immediately awareness labels it mine. The label is an illusion, a disguise covering the truth. The question has no author, only a witness. Think of a play where characters improvise. Lines appear, questions are asked, but no single actor claims authorship. The script seems to write itself in real time. Life may be no different. You are the actor, asking questions that were written into the unfolding of existence itself. You feel like the author, but the lines were always coming. So pause now. Notice the questions rising, even as you listen. Do I believe this? Is this true? Who is hearing? Did you choose those, or did they appear without your consent? The questions without author are everywhere. They shape your path, guide your decisions, define yourself, yet none belong to you. And perhaps that is the final paradox. If no one authors the questions, then perhaps no one authors the self that asks them. You are not the origin but the space in which they appear. The questions come and go, the answers fade, only the silence remains. There is a strange sensation that follows you through life, the sense of being watched, not just by others, not just by cameras or strangers in passing, but by something deeper, quieter, beyond you. This watcher does not blink, does not judge aloud, does not intervene. It simply observes, patient and steady. You feel it when you pause, when you catch yourself reflecting. I am here, I am aware. Yet when you search for the watcher's face, there is nothing. It remains unseen, a presence beyond you. Think about the way you narrate your own life. As you walk down the street, you may notice the thought, "I am walking." When you feel sadness, the thought arises, "I am sad." These statements suggest someone inside is keeping track, as if reporting to a silent overseer. But who is this watcher? Is it truly you, or is it something beyond the self you claim? Neuroscience hints that awareness is layered. One part of the brain generates experience, while another monitors it. This monitoring gives rise to the sense of self-awareness, the ability to notice that you are noticing. The watcher feels beyond you because it is separate from the immediacy of thought and action. It hovers at a distance, a quiet observer above the stage. Yet the paradox is that even this watcher is produced by the machinery of the brain. It feels beyond you, but it is made of you. Philosophy pushes the mystery further. In Eastern traditions, the watcher is often identified with the true self, pure awareness, untouched by thought or action. Advaita Vedanta names it Atman, the witness identical with the whole of existence. Buddhism, on the other hand, dissolves the watcher as well, teaching that even the witness is empty, another illusion layered on experience. Western thought too has grappled with it. Descartes clung to the certainty of "I think, therefore I am," while later thinkers like Hume argued there is no self to be found, only a flow of perceptions. In every frame, the watcher beyond you resists definition. Dreams reveal its presence in uncanny ways. In a dream, you may find yourself acting, speaking, running, yet part of you knows it is a dream. Who notices that? Who stands slightly outside the dream, watching the dreamer? Even in the most vivid dream, the watcher persists, quietly aware of the strangeness, and when you wake, the watcher follows, just as quiet, just as steady. Whether in dream or waking, something seems always beyond. Consider also the moral sense. When you act in ways you later regret, it feels as if something inside had been watching all along, silently shaking its head. When you act kindly, it feels as if something beyond you smiles, though wordlessly. Is this conscience? Is it culture internalized? Or is it the watcher, awareness itself, observing without intervention? The source is unclear, but the feeling is undeniable. Even language reflects this division. You say, "I was aware of myself," or "I caught myself thinking." These phrases imply two figures, the one who acts and the one who notices. But if there are two, which one is truly you? The actor who stumbles through thought, or the watcher beyond who sees it all? Perhaps neither. Perhaps both. This realization can be unsettling. If the watcher is always beyond you, then are you ever the true subject of your own life? Or are you simply the actor, forever observed by a silent presence you cannot reach? Yet there is also comfort here. If the watcher is beyond, it means you are never fully lost. Even in chaos, even in despair, something remains steady, untouched. But another paradox emerges. If the watcher notices, then who notices the watcher? If you try to turn awareness upon awareness, the watcher slips away, you cannot catch it. Because the moment you try, the watcher becomes the watched, and another watcher seems to appear. The recursion never ends. Each time you search, the watcher moves further beyond. Perhaps this is the truth. The watcher is not a separate entity, but the infinite regress of awareness itself. Each layer of noticing creates another, forever beyond reach. The watcher feels beyond you because it cannot be pinned down. It is not a thing but a process. Awareness folding upon itself endlessly. Still, the metaphor of strings returns. If consciousness is a puppet, then the watcher is the audience, silent in the dark, watching the play unfold. The audience never speaks, never intervenes, yet without it, the performance has no meaning. You are both actor and audience, both performer and watcher. The division is an illusion, but it feels real enough to shape your life. So tonight, pause and notice. Feel the watcher behind your eyes, listening as these words move through you. You did not summon it. You cannot dismiss it. It remains, a presence beyond thought, beyond effort. Ask yourself, if the watcher is beyond you, then who are you really? The actor speaking lines, or the silence that hears them? And perhaps the answer is not one or the other. Perhaps you are both, or perhaps you are neither. The watcher beyond you may be the closest you come to truth, a presence without owner, a silence without face, a witness without self. Intentions feel like anchors. You tell yourself, I will do this, I will change, I will act. They give the illusion of stability, of control, of authorship. Yet how often do those intentions drift? You set out to accomplish something and find yourself somewhere else entirely. You promise to break a habit, but by evening you have returned to it. You resolve to remain calm, and hours later, you are lost in anger. Intentions are not the fixed points you imagine. They are boats set loose in currents you cannot control. Neuroscience suggests this fragility is no accident. Intentions arise from networks in the brain, shaped by reward systems, emotional states, and hidden associations. What feels like a stable decision is often temporary alignment, neurons firing in a pattern that soon dissolves. When the emotional state shifts, so does the intention. You believed you decided firmly, but the machinery reconfigured, and your anchor came loose. Consciousness claims ownership, yet the currents move without your consent. Think of New Year's resolutions. Millions declare, I will change, only to falter within weeks. Were they weak? Were they insincere? Or did the very structure of intention guarantee its drift? The will is not a fixed law but a passing state. It is like weather, clear one day, stormy the next. You believe you steer the sky, but you are only standing beneath it. Philosophy captures this paradox. Schopenhauer wrote that will itself is blind, surging without reason, shaping desire before awareness knows it. Nietzsche spoke of competing drives, each rising and falling, each claiming to be my will, though none endure. Buddhism describes intentions as conditioned phenomena, arising from causes and dissolving back into emptiness. To cling to them as permanent is to misunderstand their nature. The drifting is not failure, it is their essence. Dreams illustrate this instability with eerie clarity. In dreams, you often form intentions, to run, to escape, to find someone, yet the dream shifts, and your purpose dissolves. You chase one goal, then another, then forget the first entirely. Waking life is not so different. You intend to finish a task, but a distraction pulls you. You intend to speak one way, but words come out another. Intentions drift like dream currents, carrying you farther than you realized. Even memory reshapes them. You recall a past decision and think, I meant to do this. But later, recalling again, the memory shifts. You become convinced your intention was different. Studies show this clearly. People often misremember their own plans, altering them to fit outcomes. The intention was never as fixed as it felt. It drifted not only in action, but also in memory. Culture tugs at intentions too. You may intend kindness, but social expectations redirect your behavior. You may intend honesty, but politeness bends your words. Intentions form within webs of influence. Never entirely yours, they feel personal. yet they echo with the voices of parents, peers, and traditions. When they drift, it is often because the cultural current was stronger than the individual's claim. But does this mean intentions are meaningless? Not entirely. They serve as starting points, as signals. An intention, even if it drifts, sets a direction. It is like drawing an arrow in the sand before the tide comes in. The arrow will not last, but for a moment it gives shape to your path. Perhaps the value of intention is not permanence but orientation, a reminder of possibility even if the current carries you elsewhere. And still, the paradox lingers. If intentions drift so easily, are you ever truly responsible? If you cannot hold them steady, are you guilty when they collapse? One view says yes, you must fight, must anchor yourself harder. Another says no, responsibility is softened by understanding. To see intentions as fragile is to treat yourself, and others, with compassion. We are all boats on the same shifting sea. Yet awareness of drifting may itself be power. To notice an intention drifting is to see the current at work. You may not stop it, but you can observe it. Gently steer when possible, release when necessary. Awareness does not guarantee control, but it transforms blindness into clarity. The boat still drifts, but you see the waves. Imagine standing at the shore, watching a paper boat float away. You placed it in the water with purpose, but the current decides its journey. That is every intention. You launch it, but the river takes it. To believe you control the destination is illusion. To watch it drift is truth. And perhaps, in watching you discover something more profound than control. The beauty of impermanence, the humility of not owning the current. So tonight, pause and reflect. Think of your last intention, a promise, a plan, a quiet vow. Did it hold, or did it drift? Notice how it felt solid, yet became fluid. Notice how it seemed authored, yet dissolved. Intentions are not anchors. They are ripples, temporary alignments of mind and mood. And you, the one who claims them, are carried with them, convinced you steer while the current flows. And perhaps the greatest mystery is this. Even the intention to understand your drifting intentions may itself drift away. Your life feels like a sequence of choices, fresh and unique, each moment shaped by will. Yet when you look closer, a different picture emerges. Patterns, they are everywhere. The way you wake, the way you speak, the way you argue, the way you comfort, the way you sabotage yourself, all repeat in loops. You believe you are free, but beneath the surface, patterns guide you, forming the shape of self. Think of habits. You brush your teeth, check your phone, drink your coffee in the same rhythm each day. You call it routine, but it is more than that. The body and brain crave efficiency. Neurons fire in familiar sequences, carving grooves that deepen with repetition. Soon the action requires no thought. You do not decide, you enact. The pattern acts through you. Consciousness claims authorship afterward, but the pattern was already in motion. Psychology calls these heuristics and biases. You believe you weigh evidence fairly, but hidden shortcuts steer your judgment. You trust familiar faces more, remember negative experiences longer, fall into the same errors again and again. Patterns of thought move invisibly, shaping perception. You imagine you are reasoning, but often you are only repeating. The self you claim is guided more by these hidden patterns than by conscious control. Philosophy has seen this as fate. The Stoics spoke of nature's order, the eternal recurrence of patterns shaping every life. Nietzsche turned this into challenge. If your life repeated eternally, would you embrace it? Buddhism framed it as samsara, cycles of craving, suffering, and rebirth, endlessly repeating until awareness breaks free. In every tradition, the theme is the same: patterns guide, and you follow. Dreams echo this truth. Night after night, themes repeat. You flee, you fall, you search, you argue. Different faces, different places, but the same motifs. The unconscious reveals its patterns in symbolic form, guiding the dream self as predictably as the waking one. You believe dreams are random, but they reflect the deepest grooves of mind. Even in sleep, you cannot escape repetition. Memory strengthens the illusion. You recall the past, not as a faithful archive, but as recurring themes. You remember moments that fit your story, ignore those that do not. The story repeats, because memory selects the same patterns again and again. The past you carry is not truth, but a pattern, looping endlessly, convincing you of identity. Consider relationships. How often do you find yourself drawn to the same type of person? reenacting the same dynamics. You may change partners, friends, colleagues, yet the same conflicts arise. Psychology calls this repetition compulsion. The unconscious returns to familiar patterns, even painful ones, because they feel known. You call it coincidence or bad luck, but the pattern is guiding you. Even society runs on patterns. Rituals, traditions, customs repeat across generations. The self you believe unique is shaped by these collective rhythms, holidays, languages, laws, fashions. You move within grooves carved by ancestors. Your rebellion against them is also part of the pattern, anticipated and absorbed. The self is never free from these currents. It is guided, shaped, and sustained by them. But does this mean you are only a pattern, with no freedom at all? Perhaps not. Patterns do not imprison. They structure. They provide continuity, identity, coherence. Without them, you would dissolve into chaos. The problem is not that patterns exist, but that you mistake them for self. You believe the pattern is you, when in truth, it is what guides you. Awareness shifts the relationship. When you see the pattern clearly, it loosens its grip. You notice how anger always follows the same triggers, how fear always circles the same doubts. By seeing the repetition, you create space. The pattern still hums, but you are no longer blind to it. Awareness does not erase the pattern, but it changes your place within it. And yet, paradox remains. If you notice the pattern, is that noticing not also part of a larger pattern? Is awareness itself not just another groove, repeating endlessly across seekers through time? Even the act of breaking free may be scripted by the pattern itself. You believe you transcend, but perhaps you only shift into another loop. The escape is also part of the design. Imagine standing on the shore, watching waves crash. Each wave seems unique, but all follow the same rhythm. Your thoughts, your choices, your identity are waves too. They rise, crest, and fall in patterns older than you. You watch them, call them mine, but the sea was moving long before you arrived. So tonight, pause and listen. Notice the patterns guiding you even now. The rhythm of breath, the loop of thought, the repetition of self. Ask if these patterns guide me, then what am I beyond them? Am I the pattern, or the space in which the pattern repeats? Perhaps the deepest paradox is this. You are guided by patterns, but you are also the witness of them. You are both the loop and the silence that watches it turn. You live as though someone sits at the center of your mind, steady and constant, commanding the thoughts and feelings that pass through. This inner figure feels like the true self, the pilot in the cockpit, the one behind the eyes. Yet when you look closely, the seat is empty. There is no one sitting there, no permanent figure to claim ownership, only thoughts and emotions rising and fading, as if moving through a vacant chamber. Think of the moments when you search for yourself. You close your eyes and ask, "Who am I?" You wait for the present to reveal itself. Instead you find fragments, a memory, a sensation, a mood. None endure. None remain fixed. You call them me, but each passes quickly, leaving only the silence. The seat within, which you thought occupied, is revealed as empty. Neuroscience offers support for this strange discovery. Brain scans show no central command center, no single seat of self. Instead, consciousness emerges from the interaction of countless networks. Vision here, memory there, emotions scattered across regions. When they harmonize, the illusion of a unified self appears. But it is only an illusion. The seat feels filled, but in truth, it is a chorus without conductor. Philosophy has long suspected this emptiness. Hume argued he could never find a self, only a bundle of perceptions. Buddhism names it anatta, the doctrine of no self. What you believe is a stable center is nothing but flux, endlessly arising and dissolving. The seat is empty, yet the play continues. You cling to the idea of a pilot, but all you find is the echo of a presence that never existed. Dreams reveal this clearly. In dreams you act with conviction, speak with purpose, feel deeply, yet upon waking, the dream self vanishes completely. The figure who seemed so real is gone, leaving no trace but memory. If the dream self had no permanent seat, why assume the waking self does? Both are roles arising within awareness. Both dissolve without a trace. The emptiness is consistent across states. Even language betrays the illusion. You say I decided, I thought, I felt. The word I suggests a stable seat. But in truth, is only a label glued onto shifting processes. The seat you imagine is an invention of grammar, a convenience of speech. Without the word, perhaps the illusion of the occupant would dissolve more easily. Consider also the way emotions move. You feel joy, then grief, then anger, then calm. Each claims to be you, each insists it fills the seat, but soon another replaces it. If the seat were truly occupied by one stable self, how could it be taken by so many shifting tenants? The seat is empty, and emotions merely pass through it like actors on a stage. This realization can be unsettling. If there is no one in the seat, then who is living your life? Who suffers? Who loves? Who decides? The answer may be paradoxical. No one. Life lives itself. Experiences unfold, thoughts appear, choices happen. The play continues, but without a central actor. You are not a driver steering the car, but the motion of the car itself, moving along the road without pilot. And yet, the emptiness is not barren. In meditation, when the self dissolves, what remains is vast and quiet. The absence of an occupant reveals a spaciousness, an openness that feels more real than the illusion ever did. The empty seat is not a flaw. It is the very condition that allows awareness to exist. If the seat were filled, if there were a fixed self, the play would stop. Instead, the emptiness keeps it alive. But another paradox arises. If the seat is empty, then who notices it? Who is reading these words now? If no one sits inside, how can the experience of presence be so vivid? The answer may be that noticing itself is the illusion. Awareness arises, claims an occupant, and vanishes again. The seat feels filled only because awareness shines upon it. When awareness withdraws, the illusion collapses. Think of a theater. A spotlight shines on stage, and wherever it lands, the audience sees importance. The seat within is the same. Wherever awareness shines, you call it self. But the spotlight is empty of identity. It moves, it illuminates, it creates the illusion of an occupant. The watcher you thought lived inside is nothing but the light itself. This emptiness can change how you live. If there is no one in the seat, then the burdens you carry may be lighter. Shame, guilt, fear, they attach to the imagined occupant. But if no one sits there, the weight falls away. The emotions still pass through, but they are no longer chains. They are weather, moving across the open sky. So tonight, pause and feel for the seat within. Ask, who sits there? Wait for an answer. Watch as only thoughts arise, then fade. Notice the silence beneath them. That silence is the empty seat, not a flaw, not a loss, but the ground of being itself. And perhaps the deepest paradox is this. The seat is empty, yet life still unfolds. The play goes on without an actor, and maybe it always has. You live as though decisions are born in the space behind your forehead, where thought meets will. You believe choices unfold in the moment, summoned by intention, claimed by the self. Yet beneath this confidence lies a more unsettling truth. Decisions may not be made where you think. They may be shaped, prepared, and carried out elsewhere, outside your awareness, outside your conscious control. By the time you notice them, the decision has already been made. Neuroscience has made this startlingly clear. In experiments measuring brain activity, scientists find that the motor cortex lights up seconds before a subject reports deciding to move. The brain prepares long before consciousness catches up. Awareness arrives late, like a commentator describing a game already underway. You feel like the decision maker, but in truth you are more the narrator, claiming authorship after the fact. The choice was made elsewhere, and you were the last to know. Think of instinctive reactions. You flinch when something startles you. You duck when something flies toward your face. You laugh when a joke catches you off guard. The decision to react was not born in conscious thought. It came from systems older and deeper, sculpted by evolution. The body decides, the unconscious decides, the decision happens, and then the mind claims, I chose. But did you? Or was the choice made elsewhere, before you could intervene? Philosophy echoes this puzzle. Spinoza argued that free will is an illusion, that decisions follow necessarily from prior causes, stretching back through time. Schopenhauer sharpened the point. You can do what you will, but you cannot will what you will. Even Sartre, who defended freedom, admitted that decisions arise in contexts already shaped by history and circumstance. The self is never authoring in a vacuum. The soil of every choice was planted long before you stepped upon it. Dreams illustrate this powerfully. In dreams, you act, choose, run, embrace, escape, yet none of it feels deliberate. The decision to move comes from the dream itself, not from you. And upon waking, you may realize that waking life is not so different. How often do you find yourself mid-action, surprised by your own behavior? You say, "I don't know why I did that." Perhaps the decision was not yours to begin with. Perhaps it was made elsewhere. Culture reinforces this truth. What you eat, how you speak, what you value, these are shaped by traditions, families, societies. You believe you chose your beliefs, but most were inherited. The decision to see the world one way or another was made long before you noticed. The self that claims originality is standing on ground already tilled. Even memory alters the story. When you recall a decision, you often rewrite it. You say, "I chose this because," but studies show people often invent reasons after the fact, rationalizing choices already made unconsciously. The decision was made elsewhere, but the mind cannot bear the gap, so it fills it with a story of authorship. You do not simply live decisions, you rewrite them into myths of selfhood. This realization can feel heavy. If decisions are made elsewhere, then what remains of you? Are you only a puppet, pulled by unseen strings? Yet there is also a gentler truth here. If choices are not fully yours, then perhaps the weight you carry, guilt, regret, shame, may not belong entirely to you either. The self is not a tyrant responsible for every act. It is a witness, a participant, part of a process larger than itself. But the paradox grows. If decisions are made elsewhere, who or what makes them? Is it the unconscious machinery of the brain? Is it the body's evolutionary wisdom? Is it society, culture, language, or is it something even deeper, woven into the fabric of time and causality? Perhaps decisions are not made by anyone, but emerge from the endless play of conditions. There is no decider, only decision. Still, awareness has a role. To notice the elsewhere of decision is to glimpse the machinery at work. You may not control its origin, but you can witness its unfolding. In witnessing, you sometimes shift the trajectory, not by commanding, but by creating space. The choice is still conditioned, but awareness softens the grip of automaticity. You are not the author, but you are the stage on which the decision appears. Imagine sitting at a riverbank. The water flows, carrying leaves downstream. Each leaf is a decision, appearing from beyond the bend, drifting past you. You did not place it there. You cannot stop it, yet you can watch. You can notice the flow, even if you cannot command it. Decisions are the same. They arrive, they pass, and you witness them. The elsewhere that makes them does not diminish you. It includes you. So tonight, pause. Think of your last choice. Did it truly originate in the moment, from the self you imagine, or was it prepared by mood, memory, influence, and habit, long before you noticed? Consider how many of your choices were already decided by the time you claimed them. Notice the silence that follows. If decisions are made elsewhere, then who are you? The author, the witness, or perhaps the story itself, unfolding line by line, without anyone writing it at all. And maybe that is the deepest paradox. Decisions are made elsewhere, yet they feel unmistakably yours. The illusion of authorship binds you to the play, even as the script writes itself. You live as though thought is your faithful companion, honest and reliable. You trust it to tell you the truth, to guide your steps, to reveal who you are. But look closely, and thought begins to show its disguise. It claims to be yours, but it is not. It claims to be truth, but it distorts. It claims to be you, but it passes like weather. Thought may be less a companion, and more an imposter, wearing your voice while hiding its own origin. Think about how thoughts arrive. You do not summon most of them. They burst in suddenly, a memory in the middle of work, an anxious prediction before sleep, a strange image for no reason at all. Did you choose them? No. They appeared uninvited, yet they sound like you. The imposter wears your tone, your vocabulary, your rhythm. But beneath the mask, it is not yours. Neuroscience suggests thoughts are generated by networks firing automatically, influenced by memory, mood, and external stimuli. The conscious mind does not create them but receives them. Awareness is more like a stage, and thoughts are actors stepping into the spotlight. You assume the actor belongs to you, but in truth, you did not cast them. They arrived, spoke, and left. The imposter performs, and you applaud as though you wrote the lines. Philosophy has warned of this trick. Descartes trusted thought as proof of existence. I think, therefore I am, but Hume countered. Thought does not prove a thinker, only that impressions arise. Buddhism goes further. Thoughts are illusions, empty of self, transient and deceptive. The imposter creates the illusion of solidity, but nothing stands behind it. To believe thought is truth is to fall for the disguise. Consider dreams again. In dreams, thoughts move with conviction. You believe the story unfolding. You feel the fear, the desire, the confusion. Only upon waking do you realize the dream thoughts were imposters, pretending to be real. Yet waking thoughts are no different. They claim truth until you notice their fragility. They vanish when examined, replaced by others. Thought wears the mask of permanence, but it is as fleeting as smoke. Even memory reveals the deceit. A thought says, "I remember clearly," but memory is reconstructed, altered, reshaped. Studies show false memories can feel as vivid as true ones. The imposter thought declares ownership. This happened to me, but the event may never have occurred. Thought invents, and you believe, the disguise is flawless. And consider the way thought comments endlessly. It narrates your day, judges your actions, predicts futures, replays pasts. It insists it is in control, that it speaks as your true voice. Yet, try to stop it. The imposter refuses silence. It continues without command, filling the space with chatter. You are not its master. You are its audience, sometimes captive, sometimes complicit. But if thought is imposter, who are you beneath it? Perhaps you are the silence in which thought appears. Perhaps you are the awareness that watches the imposter perform. This is what meditation reveals. When thoughts are observed, they lose their grip. They pass like clouds, and you see the sky beneath. The imposter remains, but its disguise weakens. You no longer mistake it for self. And yet, paradox endures. If you watch the thought as imposter, is the watcher itself not another thought? The voice that says, "I am aware, I see the trick," may itself be the imposter in a new mask. Each layer you peel reveals another disguise. You search for truth, but every step reveals thought hiding in new clothes. The imposter is endless, recursive, impossible to fully unmask. Still, noticing changes everything. To see thought as imposter is to loosen its authority. You no longer bow to every judgment, no longer cling to every story. You hear the voice say, "You will fail, you are unworthy," and you recognize imposter. You hear it promise, "You are in control, you own every choice," and you see imposter again. Recognition does not silence thought, but it softens its rule. Imagine a masquerade. Masks fill the hall, each claiming to be someone. You wander, believing at first. But then you realize, all are disguises. None are who they seem. The masquerade continues, but you dance more lightly, knowing the truth. Thought as imposter is no different. The ball never ends, but you need not mistake every mask for reality. So tonight, pause and listen. The thoughts will come, as they always do. They will speak with your voice, wear your face, claim your truth. Ask yourself, did I summon this? Did I author it? Or is it another imposter, passing through the silence? Notice how quickly the disguise crumbles when you question it. Notice how the imposter fades back into nothing. And perhaps the deepest paradox is this. Even the thought that says thought is an imposter, is itself an imposter. The truth cannot be caught by thought, because thought is always disguise. What remains then is not thought, but the silent awareness in which imposters rise and fall, endlessly, without author, without end. You speak of will, as though it is the deepest truth of self. I will do this. I will not do that. You imagine it as a force, steady and commanding, the inner engine that propels life forward. Yet look carefully, and the illusion begins to unravel. The will you claim as your own may not exist in the way you think. It is less a sovereign force and more a shadow, appearing after the fact, declaring ownership it never had. Will that isn't, a ghost you mistake for substance. Consider the experiments where scientists measure brain activity before conscious choice. The readiness potential spikes seconds before the subject reports deciding. The brain moves first, and only afterward does the mind claim, "I willed this." The will is not the cause, but the commentary. Like a politician arriving after the work is done, it claims credit for decisions already made. Think also of impulses. You tell yourself you will not eat the sweet, will not lash out in anger, will not fall back into habit. Yet moments later, the body acts, the impulse wins, and afterward you say, "My will was weak." But perhaps it was never weak. Perhaps it was never there at all. What you call will is an explanation layered over forces you do not command. Biology, emotion, memory, conditioning. These currents move, and you float with them. The idea of will is the story that justifies the drift. Philosophy has long wrestled with this. Schopenhauer claimed, man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. Spinoza saw freedom not as breaking from necessity, but as understanding it. Nietzsche challenged the very concept of will, calling it a constellation of drives, none sovereign, all competing. The I will, you repeat daily, may be nothing more than a mask worn by forces too vast to name. Dreams expose this illusion. In dreams, you act, you run, you speak, you fight. It all feels like will, until you wake and realize none of it was chosen. You did not decide. The dream carried you. Waking life may not differ as much as you think. Decisions arise, actions unfold, and afterward you weave the story of will. But the script was already written, the performance already underway. Even memory betrays you. You recall past choices, and imagine you willed them. But memory is reconstructive. It reshapes events, adds reasons, invents coherence. You look back and say, I chose this by will. But often you are rewriting, justifying outcomes that were guided by circumstances you never controlled. Will is projected backward into history, painted over the past to make it feel authored. Culture reinforces the illusion. From childhood you are told, you must be strong-willed, you must resist, you must choose rightly. These words shape identity. You grow convinced that will is a muscle you possess. But what if it is only a cultural story, repeated until it feels real, a story that conceals the deeper truth? You never owned the force you claim. This realization can be frightening. If there is no will, then who are you? A puppet, a passenger, a vessel carried by unseen streams. Yet there is also release here. If the will was never yours, then the guilt you carry may not be either. The shame of failing, the burden of weakness, the endless demand to do better. Perhaps these were always misplaced. If will does not exist as you imagine, then your failures are not failures of will. They are simply the unfolding of causes. But the paradox deepens. If will is an illusion, what is freedom? Perhaps freedom is not control, but awareness. To see the forces moving you, to notice the currents shaping you, is to step into a new kind of clarity. You may not command the river, but you can see it flow. That seeing is not will, but it is something, a light shining on the truth of movement. And yet, notice how even this thought feels like will. I will notice. I will be aware. The illusion persists. Even when you see through it, the language of will returns, refusing to vanish. Perhaps the illusion is too deeply woven. Perhaps there is no way to speak, to think, to live, without invoking the ghost of will. Still, awareness changes the relationship. You no longer need to cling to the idea of will as master. You can watch as thoughts arise, as actions unfold, as choices appear. You can see them as movements, not commands. You may discover that life continues without the need for an inner tyrant named will. The dance goes on, and you are part of it, with or without the ghost. Imagine a play where every actor believes they improvise, yet all follow the same script. The illusion of will gives the performance energy. Without it, perhaps the play would falter. Will is not real, but its illusion keeps life coherent. It binds experience, creates accountability, gives meaning. You may not have will, but you live as though you do. And that may be enough. So tonight, ask yourself, when you say I will, what do you really mean? Are you authoring, or only narrating? Is will a force, or is it the shadow of forces moving elsewhere? Listen closely to the silence that follows. If will is not real, then what remains of you? Perhaps nothing fixed, nothing sovereign, only life itself, unfolding. And maybe that is the deepest paradox of all. The will that isn't still feels real enough to live by. The mind feels like it is yours forever, a steady flame that will burn as long as you do. You rely on it to remember, to decide, to imagine, to shape your very sense of self. But beneath this comfort lies a sobering truth. The mind runs on borrowed time. Its clarity fades, its speed slows, its structures decay. Even in youth, it tires, forgets, falters. The mind is not an eternal possession. It is a temporary arrangement, a loan given for a while, destined one day to be taken back. Think of memory. You hold it tightly, believing it anchors you. Yet memory slips, fragments, rewrites itself. Entire years blur, moments vanish, names dissolve on the tongue. Neurodegenerative diseases reveal the fragility with brutal clarity. The person who once remembered everything becomes someone who remembers almost nothing. But even in health, forgetting shadows every life. The mind's continuity rests on time. It does not own. Neuroscience confirms this. The brain consumes extraordinary energy to maintain its functions. Deprive it of oxygen for minutes, and awareness collapses. Alter its chemistry, and perception changes. Trauma, fatigue, or simple aging reshapes its patterns. What feels like an enduring self is dependent on delicate machinery, vulnerable to time's erosion. The mind appears sovereign, yet it lives on conditions it cannot control. Philosophy has grappled with this impermanence. Heidegger described human existence as being toward death, a recognition that finitude defines us. The Stoics taught that everything borrowed must be returned, including the mind itself. Buddhism has long emphasized impermanence, teaching that clinging to what cannot last is the root of suffering. The mind is no exception. To see it as borrowed is not despair, but clarity. Dreams remind you of this too. Each night, awareness flickers. The waking mind dissolves, replaced by strange narratives beyond command. You vanish into sleep, and the mind you call yours is suspended, reshaped, reborn in fragments. Even daily the mind proves it is not fully yours. It withdraws, it returns, it changes. It is borrowed in cycles, lent, and taken back with each sunrise. Consider time itself. Every thought you have arrives a fraction of a second after the brain has begun its work. You live behind the present, catching up to processes already underway. The mind is always late, always borrowing time from the machinery beneath awareness. What you call now is already past. The illusion of immediacy hides the truth. Consciousness runs on delay forever, one step behind. Even culture borrows the mind. The language you think in was given to you. The concepts you use are inherited. The stories that shape your identity are older than you. Your mind borrows from parents, teachers, books, traditions. You believe it is your own, but it is filled with echoes from countless others. Your thoughts are not possessions but loans from history, returned as quickly as they came. And yet, the illusion of ownership persists. You insist, my mind, my thoughts, my decisions. Perhaps the illusion is necessary. To live each day believing the mind could vanish at any moment might paralyze you. The disguise of permanence allows you to act, to love, to plan, but beneath the disguise, the truth waits. The mind you call yours is borrowed, fragile, temporary. This realization can be unsettling. If the mind is on borrowed time, then what are you? A flicker, a brief spark, a momentary configuration of neurons and memories, perhaps. But it can also be liberating. If the mind is borrowed, then you need not cling so tightly. You can let go of failures, of regrets, of the demand for perfection. The mind was never yours to control completely. It was always passing through. Still, the paradox lingers. If the mind is borrowed, then who is the borrower? Who holds the loan? Who will take it back? Is it biology, the body, time itself, or something beyond? The question loops without answer. Perhaps there is no borrower, no lender. Only the recognition that nothing lasts forever. Imagine holding a candle in the dark. The flame flickers, lights your path, warms your hand, but you know it cannot last. The wax melts, the light fades. Still, while it burns, it is beautiful. The mind is the same, a borrowed flame, given for a while, destined to end. Its impermanence does not diminish it. It deepens its wonder. So tonight, notice the borrowed quality of your own mind. Notice how thoughts arrive unbidden, how memories slip, how awareness flickers between waking and sleep. You cannot hold it forever, but perhaps you do not need to. Perhaps it was never about possession, but about witnessing. The mind is borrowed time, and you are the silence in which it passes. And maybe the paradox is this. The mind is borrowed, yet while you have it, it feels eternal. The flame burns as though it will never end, even as the wax melts beneath it. You live each day as though you are the one steering your life. You believe you act, decide, initiate, and control. You feel agency in every gesture. The choice to lift a hand, the resolve to speak, the plan to move forward. Yet, when you examine this closely, the sense of control begins to dissolve. What you call agency may not be what it seems. It may be an illusion, convincing, persistent, but empty at its core. Think about the experiments where subjects move a cursor on a screen, convinced they are in control. In reality, the computer alters the movements, yet the participants still believe they caused them. The feeling of agency persists, even when false. Neuroscience shows how easily the brain constructs the illusion. If an action aligns with expectation, the mind claims ownership. The story of "I did this" arises even when it is untrue. Consider how often actions precede awareness. You reach for your phone before realizing you intended to. You blurt out words before you know why. You laugh before you decide to find something funny. The impulse acts, and only afterward does awareness arrive to claim authorship. You feel like the agent, but the action was already unfolding. Agency is not cause but commentary. Philosophy has long wrestled with this paradox. Locke defined freedom as the ability to act according to one's will, but Hume doubted whether the will itself was free. Kant argued that agency requires an unknowable transcendental self, hidden beyond experience. More recently, thinkers described the sense of agency as a construction, the brain weaving together perception, intention, and outcome into a coherent illusion. Agency feels real because the story feels necessary. Without it, life would fracture into chaos. Dreams reveal this illusion clearly. In dreams, you run, speak, fight, and choose. It all feels like agency, yet none of it is under conscious control. The dream moves you, and you call it action. Waking is not so different. You act, and the illusion of agency overlays the movements. The play is already written, but you believe you are improvising. Even memory reshapes agency. You recall a decision and say, "I chose this," but research shows you often reconstruct the story. The reasons, the sequence, even the sense of control are rewritten. You believe you had agency, but much of it is an invention added later. The memory of agency is as unreliable as the experience itself. Culture reinforces the illusion. You are told from childhood, you are responsible, you control your destiny, you must try harder. These teachings shape identity, embedding the sense of agency deeply, but they also hide the truth. Most conditions of life are beyond control. Where you were born, who raised you, what opportunities appeared, none of these were chosen. Yet society demands you wear the mask of agency, even when its fabric is thin. Still, the illusion is not useless. Agency may be false, but it is functional. It motivates, organizes, and gives coherence to existence. Without believing I act, you might not rise from bed, might not strive or connect. The illusion sustains life, even if it is not truth. Agency may be a story, but it is a story you must live. And yet, the paradox returns. If agency is an illusion, are you free of responsibility? If you did not truly choose, then who is to blame? Who is to praise? Some argue that moral systems collapse without agency. Others suggest the opposite. Seeing agency as illusion allows greater compassion. You recognize that people are moved by causes they do not command. Blame softens, judgment eases. You treat yourself and others with gentleness, knowing no one truly authors the self. But even this awareness is tricky. If you say, "I see the illusion of agency," are you not claiming agency in noticing? The very act of declaring "I understand" folds back into the illusion. Perhaps there is no way to escape it fully. The illusion is self-protecting, recursive, endlessly regenerating. Even recognizing it becomes part of its disguise. Imagine a puppet on stage, strings hidden in the dark. The puppet moves, gestures, speaks, and the audience believes it alive. Agency feels the same. The strings are invisible. Biology, culture, memory, unconscious processes. Yet the performance feels authentic. You are the puppet, but you are also the audience. Convinced by the show, the illusion is complete. So tonight, pause and reflect. Think of something you did today. Did you truly choose it? Or did it arise from habit, influence, conditioning, unseen currents? Notice how quickly the thought arises. "I decided." Notice how stubbornly agency insists on itself. The illusion does not dissolve easily, because without it, the self feels hollow. Perhaps the deepest paradox is this. Even if agency is illusion, you must live as though it is real. The story sustains you, even as you see through it. You are the actor in a play you do not control, yet the performance feels yours, and maybe that is enough. Awareness feels like the captain of the ship, steering thought and action through the waves of life. You believe that, because you are aware, you are in command. You notice a thought, and you think you directed it. You see an action, and you believe you chose it. Awareness wears the mask of control so convincingly that you rarely question it. Yet beneath the surface lies another truth. Awareness does not command. It pretends, it observes and narrates. But the steering wheel it claims to hold is only for show. Neuroscience suggests this clearly. Decisions begin in the brain before awareness arises. Neural pathways prepare, initiate and execute, while awareness lags behind, stepping in only to claim ownership. You believe you acted because you were aware, but in reality, the brain acted first. Awareness is the voice that says, "I did this," even when it did not. The mask of control conceals the machinery. Think of habits. You find yourself scrolling your phone, biting your nails, speaking words you regret. Only afterward does awareness appear, saying, "I chose this," but the action was already unfolding. Awareness joins late, like a spectator pretending to be conductor. The illusion is convincing, because without it, you might not feel coherent at all. Philosophy has long suspected this. Nietzsche called consciousness the surface, a tool for communication, not the origin of action. Schopenhauer argued that will, not awareness, moves you and awareness only reports. Buddhism speaks of awareness as witness, not controller. The play unfolds and awareness watches, yet insists on wearing the crown of authorship. The pretending is part of its function. Dreams reveal the disguise in sharp relief. In dreams, awareness exists. You see, feel, react, yet you do not control the dream. You run when it tells you, you speak when it writes the script. Waking is no different. Awareness watches, reacts, reports, but the story moves without its command. The mask of control makes you believe otherwise, but the dream never ended. Even memory betrays the pretense. You recall a decision and remember being in control, but research shows you often misremember, inventing reasons after the fact. Awareness edits the past to maintain the illusion of authorship. It pretends not only in the present, but also in the story it tells about the past. The disguise is total. Culture strengthens the illusion. From childhood, you are told, be mindful, be aware, take control of your life. These words convince you that awareness and control are inseparable. Yet in practice, you often act first and rationalize later. The belief in awareness as control keeps society functioning, but beneath it, the truth hums quietly. The show of control hides the absence of command. But does this mean awareness is meaningless? Not entirely. Even if it pretends, the pretense has value. Awareness allows reflection, coherence, communication. It may not steer the ship, but it narrates the journey, and in doing so, it shapes how the journey feels. Control is an illusion, but the illusion organizes life. Without it, you might dissolve into chaos. And yet the paradox persists. If awareness is only pretending, who or what runs life? Biology? Habit? Culture? Chance? If awareness is not the driver, then the driver remains hidden. You search for the true commander, but find only layers of processes, causes, and influences. The driver dissolves, and you are left with the realization that there may never have been one at all. Still, noticing the pretense changes everything. When awareness claims, "I am in control," you can smile gently and see through it. You can watch thoughts and actions unfold without clinging to them as proof of authorship. This softens the burden of responsibility. The weight of always being in charge lightens when you realize you never were. Life moves, and you are carried. Imagine sitting in a theater. On stage, an actor delivers lines with confidence, as if they were spontaneous. You know the script was written, yet the performance convinces you of freedom. Awareness is that actor. It pretends control so convincingly that you believe, but when you see the performance for what it is, you are freed. Not from the play itself, but from the illusion that you must direct it. So tonight, pause and reflect. Notice how awareness insists on control. Notice how it says, "I am steering this moment." Ask yourself, did I summon this thought, or did it arrive on its own? Did I command this feeling, or did it appear unbidden? Watch as the illusion crumbles, leaving silence behind. And perhaps the deepest paradox is this: even knowing awareness pretends control, you cannot live as if it doesn't. You continue to say, "I think, I act, I choose." The pretense is woven into language, into identity, into life itself. Awareness may be pretending, but the performance is the only play there is. The self feels like a ship at harbor, tethered securely to something solid, steady, permanent. You wake each morning and assume the same air that fell asleep has returned. You carry your name, your face, your history, and believe these are anchors holding you in place. Yet look deeper, and you may find no true anchor at all. The self drifts. It is a vessel floating on shifting tides of memory, mood, culture, and time. A self without anchor, convinced of stability, yet always moving. Think of how identity changes across situations. At work, you are one version of yourself, with friends another, alone, yet another. None of these are false, yet none endure beyond the moment. The self is not anchored, but adaptive, changing shape with context. What feels like a solid core is more like water, poured into different containers, taking their form. You believe you are stable, but the self bends to circumstance. Neuroscience affirms this instability. Studies reveal no single self-center in the brain. Instead, multiple networks interact, sometimes harmoniously, sometimes chaotically. The default mode network spins narratives. Memory networks reconstruct the past. Sensory systems shape the present. Together they create the illusion of a unified self. But when examined closely, the anchor vanishes. There is no permanent captain at the helm, only shifting processes that sometimes align into coherence. Philosophy has long suspected this emptiness. Hume wrote of the self as a bundle of perceptions, always changing, never fixed. Buddhism teaches anatta, the doctrine of no self, warning against clinging to an anchor that does not exist. Nietzsche spoke of the self as masks, ever-changing, with no true face beneath them. Each points to the same truth: the self is not anchored, but adrift, carried by winds it cannot control. Dreams reveal this fluidity with startling clarity. In one dream, you are a child again. In another, a stranger. In another, you play a role you never imagined. Each feels convincingly like you, yet upon waking they dissolve. If the self had a permanent anchor, why could it shift so easily? Dreams remind you that identity is malleable, not fixed, a performance, not a possession. Even memory, which seems like the strongest anchor, betrays you. Memories change over time, altered by suggestion, emotion, or simple forgetting. The self that depends on them shifts with each retelling. The anchor is not stone, but sand, reshaped by every tide. You tell yourself a story of continuity, but the story is stitched together from fragments, many of them false. The anchor you cling to is a narrative, not a fact. Culture provides another illusion of anchoring. You inherit names, roles, traditions, and wear them like chains of identity. They convince you of stability. I am from here. I belong to this group. I carry this history. Yet travel, loss, or exile can strip these away, leaving you unmoored. The cultural anchor was always conditional, not absolute. The self drifts when the social dock disappears. But does this mean the self is meaningless? Not at all. The drifting is not failure. It is the essence of identity. The ship without anchor is still a ship, moving, exploring, living. To accept the drift is to recognize that the self is not a fixed point but a process. You are not anchored, being but flowing, becoming. The lack of anchor is not emptiness, but possibility. And yet, paradox emerges. If the self has no anchor, then who is reading these words now? There is undeniably someone here, listening, reflecting, feeling. How can this presence exist without a core? Perhaps because presence does not require anchor. It is like a flame, real, vivid, alive, but dependent on conditions, not a solid base. The flame exists, yet it clings to nothing. The self is the same. Still, the illusion of anchoring persists. Language demands it. You say, I am me, I am this, I am that. The words create the sense of permanence, reinforcing the anchor. Without them, perhaps the illusion would collapse. But you cannot live without language, so you cannot fully escape the sense of self. The mask remains, even when you glimpse the emptiness beneath. Imagine floating on open water. At first, the lack of anchor terrifies you. You crave the dock, the certainty of land. But then you notice the horizon, the vastness, the freedom. The drift becomes not threat, but wonder. A self without anchor is not a failure. It is the truth of existence. To see it clearly is to accept the currents, to live as motion rather than permanence. So tonight, pause, feel the self you carry, the one that insists it is anchored. Ask yourself, where is the anchor? Is it in memory, in the body, in the roles you play? Watch as each slips away when examined. What remains is not absence but openness, the space in which self drifts, moment by moment. And perhaps the deepest paradox is this. The self without anchor feels terrifying when first seen, but liberating when truly accepted. To float without tether is not to be lost. It is to be free. When you look into a mirror, you see a face. It feels like yours, the origin of expression, the source of identity, yet you know the truth. The mirror does not generate the image, it only reflects it. What you see is not the origin, but the echo, not the source, but the surface. The self you carry may be no different. What you call me may not be the origin of thought and action, but only a reflection of processes happening elsewhere, mirrored into awareness. Consider how thoughts appear. They rise unbidden, shimmering in the light of attention. You believe they originate in you, but neuroscience shows they emerge from hidden networks long before awareness. The reflection arrives after the origin. Awareness is the mirror, thought is the image, but the true source lies in unseen machinery. You look at the reflection and mistake it for the origin, forgetting the invisibility of what lies beneath. Philosophy has long wrestled with this illusion. Descartes argued for the thinking self as proof of existence, yet Hume dismantled it, claiming only perceptions exist, without core origin. Nietzsche spoke of consciousness as the surface, not depth, not cause, but reflection. Buddhism echoes the same. The self is a reflection of conditions, empty of independent origin. Each tradition gestures toward the same paradox. What you call identity is not the origin of experience, only the reflection of it. Dreams reveal this most vividly. In dreams, you act, speak, suffer, rejoice. It all feels authored. Yet upon waking, you see that the dream self was not origin but reflection, shaped by fragments of memory and emotion. The dream mirrors the unconscious, not your command. Waking life may not differ so much. The waking self reflects processes that originate elsewhere, yet insists it is the author. The reflection claims to be the source. Even memory behaves like reflection. You recall a childhood moment and believe you are touching its origin, but memory reconstructs, edits, invents. What you experience is a reflection of fragments reshaped by the present. The origin is gone, only the reflection remains. And still, you cling to it, calling it truth. Culture too turns the self into reflection. You speak in a language you did not create, hold values you did not choose, act out roles you inherited. You are a reflection of family, society, history. You imagine originality, but much of you echoes patterns, written long before you. The self reflects the world around it, pretending to be the origin of what it only mirrors. This realization unsettles the idea of agency. If the self is reflection, then choices may not be born inside but refracted from influences outside. You act not because you originated the action, but because countless conditions shaped it, reflecting into awareness. Yet this does not make life meaningless. A reflection may not be origin, but it still carries beauty. The moon shines not with its own light, but with the reflection of the sun. Does that diminish its glow? And yet, paradox remains. If the self is reflection, what is the mirror? Is awareness the mirror reflecting processes, or is even awareness another reflection, endlessly refracted, with no origin at all? When you look for the source, it recedes further, always elsewhere. The origin dissolves, leaving only reflections stacked upon reflections, like mirrors facing each other, infinite regress with no beginning. Still, noticing this changes the relationship. To see the self as reflection is to loosen the grip of authorship. You need not cling so tightly to every thought, every emotion, every choice. You can watch them pass like images in glass, real in appearance, but not permanent in substance. The reflection does not bind you once you see it clearly. Imagine standing before a calm lake. The trees reflect perfectly. The sky lies mirrored on the surface. You might mistake the reflection for reality, until you reach down and the water ripples, dissolving the image. The self is the same, vivid, convincing, yet easily disturbed. What you call identity is water reflecting light. The origin is elsewhere, perhaps unreachable. So tonight, pause and notice. Feel the sense of self you carry, the one that claims authorship. Ask yourself, is this the origin or the reflection? Watch as thoughts arise, not from choice but from elsewhere. Watch as awareness mirrors them, claiming ownership. The reflection will insist it is real, but beneath it lies silence, the absence of origin. And perhaps the deepest paradox is this. Even if the self is only reflection, life still unfolds as though it were origin. You act, you speak, you love, you suffer, all under the illusion of authorship. The reflection may not be the source, but it is still the only face you know. You believe you are the writer of your own story, the voice behind the words, the hand guiding the script. Every thought, every decision, every emotion feels authored by you. Yet if you pause and listen closely, you may notice that much of your story is written by silence itself. Between the words, beneath the noise, there is a quiet force shaping you. Thoughts emerge from it. Choices rise from it. Identity is traced in its unseen hand. You are not always the writer. You are being written. Think of the gaps between thoughts. One dissolves, another appears. In the space between, there is silence. But it is not empty. It is the fertile ground from which the next thought grows. Neuroscience shows that unconscious processes hum beneath awareness, preparing ideas, shaping decisions before they surface. Awareness hears the thought only once it has formed, already written in silence. You believe you composed it, but in truth, it arrived completed. The author is hidden. Philosophy echoes this. Heidegger wrote of silence as the horizon of being, where words and meaning emerge. Buddhist traditions teach that thoughts arise from emptiness, returning to it when they fade. The silence is not absence but origin. The canvas upon which every mark of self is drawn. To call yourself the writer is to mistake the ink for the page. Dreams reveal this powerfully. In dreams, stories unfold without your command. Characters appear, events spiral, emotions swell. You are both participant and witness, yet never the author. The script writes itself in silence, without your hand. Waking is not so different. Your daily thoughts and actions are born from unseen depths, rising into awareness as though you wrote them, when in truth they were written for you. Even language betrays this. You open your mouth, and words flow. You believe you chose each one deliberately, but most arrive automatically, shaped by habit, memory, grammar, culture. You hear yourself speaking, and are surprised sometimes by what emerges. The silence beneath speech is writing you as much as you write it. Memory, too, reveals the hand of silence. You recall moments long forgotten, surfacing suddenly without effort. Why now? Why this fragment? You did not summon it. Silence wrote it into your awareness, stitched it into your story. Even the past is rewritten in this way, altered by silence that edits without asking. The self you believe stable is endlessly revised by an author you cannot see. And yet, this realization unsettles. If silence writes you, then where are you in the story? Are you a character only, with no pen of your own? Are you a voice speaking lines drafted elsewhere? The fear arises, perhaps you do not exist as author at all. Perhaps you are only narrative, not narrator. But there is also a gentler truth here. If silence writes you, then you are never fully lost. You need not force every thought, design every path. The story unfolds, even when you let go. There is relief in recognizing that life does not depend entirely on your effort. The silence that writes you also carries you. Still, the paradox persists. If silence writes you, then who notices it? Who hears the words and feels them as personal? Perhaps there is no reader, apart from the story itself. Perhaps awareness is both the text and the act of reading, the written and the witness. In this way, silence does not write you, it writes itself as you. Imagine an empty page, slowly filling with words. The ink flows, but no hand holds the pen. The words appear, coherent, alive. You are the page, filled line by line, yet the author remains invisible. You cannot trace the origin. You can only live the story as it arrives. This perspective can change everything. When thoughts arise, you need not cling to them as proof of authorship. When emotions swell, you need not claim them as identity. You can see them as words written by silence, temporary passages in a book that is always unfolding. You do not own them. You host them. So tonight, pause and listen. In the gaps between these words, notice the silence. Feel how it shapes your awareness, how it writes the next thought before you call it yours. Ask, if silence writes me, then who am I beyond the writing? The answer may not come, but the question itself deepens the recognition. And perhaps the deepest paradox is this. You are convinced you are the author of your life, yet much of your story is written in silence, and still the illusion of authorship is necessary, for without it, the story might not feel like yours at all. Every choice feels like a single act, small and contained, beginning and ending in the moment you make it. You say, I decided, and then you move on. But look closer, and you will see choices do not end where they are made. They echo, they reverberate through memory, through identity, through time itself. Some grow louder with repetition, some fade into whispers, yet all continue to sound long after you think they are finished. A choice is never a solitary event. It is a wave, carrying forward into places you cannot see. Think about something simple, choosing to speak or remain silent. In the moment, it feels minor, yet the words spoken may change another's life, shift a relationship, redirect your own path. The silence kept may echo as regret, as mystery, as peace. You cannot know in advance how far the ripples will spread. Neuroscience reminds us of this too. Decisions strengthen neural pathways, reinforcing habits that return again and again. Each choice leaves a trace in the machinery of the brain. The echo is physical as well as psychological. Philosophy has long pondered these ripples. Kierkegaard wrote of the weight of choice, how each decision defines you even when forgotten. Sartre claimed you are condemned to freedom, that every choice carries responsibility beyond itself, shaping not only your life but what it means to be human. Buddhism frames choices as karma, not punishment or reward, but echoes of cause and effect reverberating endlessly. In every tradition, choice is never finished. It always resounds. Dreams reveal this, in strange ways. You dream of places, people, fears you thought forgotten, yet they return because of choices once made. A word spoken years ago, an action left unfinished. The unconscious replays them, echoing in symbolic form. Even in sleep, choices you believed buried return as whispers. The echo does not rest. Even memory reshapes choices into echoes. You recall a decision differently each time, altering its meaning. The choice you once celebrated may turn bitter in hindsight. The choice you once regretted may reveal unexpected gifts. Memory is not a stable archive, but an echo chamber, where choices resound in changing tones. You do not live the decision only once. You live it each time you remember. Culture amplifies echoes further. A single choice in history, a discovery, a law, a war, a speech, reverberates through generations. You are shaped by echoes of choices made by people you never met, centuries before you were born, and your own choices, no matter how small, may ripple outward, touching lives you will never see. The echo is larger than the moment. Yet the paradox is this: in the moment of choosing, the echo is invisible. You feel decisive, immediate, contained. Only later do you hear how loud the choice truly was. Sometimes the echo returns as comfort, the kindness repeated, the wisdom passed on. Other times it returns as haunting, the harm remembered, the regret replayed. The echo is impartial. It resounds whatever was struck. But if choices echo endlessly, what does that mean for freedom? If each decision reverberates through time, then you are never free of the past. You walk among echoes, pulled by their resonance, guided by paths they carved, and yet, every new choice adds another echo, another wave. Freedom may not mean escaping echoes, but shaping the sound they make. You cannot silence the chamber, but you can alter the song. Still, awareness softens the weight. To notice the echo is to step back from illusion. You see that choices are not finished, that they will return. This awareness allows gentleness. You do not need to demand perfection of yourself. You can accept that every act will echo, sometimes in ways you cannot control. The chamber of life is too vast to manage, but you can move within it with humility. Imagine standing in a canyon. You shout, and the sound bounces back, multiplied, distorted, yet still yours. Choices are the same. You act, and the world answers. Sometimes the echo comes quickly, sometimes years later, sometimes through people you never meet. The canyon is infinite. The echo never ends. So tonight, pause and listen. What choices are still echoing within you? Which words spoken long ago still reverberate in memory? Which silences return as haunting? Which decisions ripple through your present life? Notice how you live not in isolation, but in resonance with your past. And notice too how choices made now will echo forward into futures you cannot imagine. And perhaps the deepest paradox is this: though choices echo endlessly, you never hear them all. Most fade into distances beyond reach. You live convinced of control, yet you dwell in chambers filled with echoes you cannot trace. The self you are is not only today's decisions, but the resonance of every choice, heard and unheard, still reverberating through time. Who are you when no one is looking? Who are you when you're not trying to be anything at all? Strip away your name, your history, your preferences, your memories, and what remains. This final descent leads you to the quietest layer of the mind, where identity flickers like a candle in the wind, unstable, sourceless, echoing itself without a beginning. Identity as you know it feels continuous. It feels like a you is moving through time, collecting experiences, learning lessons, growing older. But underneath this sensation is something far stranger, a collection of fragments, held together, not by a solid core, but by repetition. You are not a fixed point, but a narrative that retells itself so often, it begins to sound true. Neuroscientists have long searched for the source of identity in the brain, a place where the self lives. But the deeper they look, the more dispersed the answer becomes. The prefrontal cortex processes decisions. The limbic system stores emotional responses. The posterior cingulate monitors self-relevant memories. Yet nowhere is there a central you. It's coordination, not origin. Integration, not essence. Your identity is a symphony, not a single note. Philosophy supports this unease. David Hume argued there is no coherent self, only a bundle of perceptions that change from moment to moment. Buddhist traditions speak of anatta, non-self, the understanding that what we call me is a convenient illusion, a shortcut to survive the world, not a truth about our being. Still, you live with the illusion because it comforts. To feel there is a you inside the story makes the pain bearable, the joy meaningful. But what if identity is not a being but a doing, a verb, not a noun? You are what you do, say, choose, not what you are in any fixed sense. And without those doings, identity becomes vapor. Consider how you shift between roles. Around family, you act one way. Around friends, another. At work, you become efficient. Alone, you may not even speak. Which of these is the real you? Likely none, or all. Identity is performative, not fake, but fluid. It adjusts to context, like water taking the shape of its container. Dreams reveal this truth with eerie clarity. In dreams, you forget who you are. You become someone else, with different motives, fears, faces, and yet in the dream, you don't question it. Only upon waking do you realize your sense of self was borrowed, temporary, created for the scene. So what assures you this current self is more permanent than the one in the dream? Memory is no anchor either. You trust memory to ground identity. I remember who I was, therefore I am still me, but memory is edited. Studies show how easy it is to implant false memories, how readily your brain fills in missing gaps with stories that never happened. So even your autobiography is fiction, co-authored by bias and imagination. You say, I think, therefore I am. But if your thoughts are not authored by a solid you, what then? You are the echo of cognitive processes, influenced by genetics, environment, trauma, culture. Where in this complex machinery is the original? Where is the starting point? Trace it back far enough, and there's only input and reaction, reflection and mimicry. You become like a mirror, trying to find its own face. And maybe that's the point. Identity, like a mirror, is useful, not because it shows itself, but because it reflects. You mirror others. You mirror experiences. You mirror ideas, inherited beliefs, absorbed values. And over time, the reflection becomes familiar. You call it you, but it is just what's passing across the glass. The paradox is this. You need identity to function, but the more closely you look, the more it dissolves. The tighter you grip it, the more it slips through your fingers. It is not a lie, it is a tool, like a mask worn by an actor who forgets the stage. And still, something persists. Not a self, perhaps, but awareness of change. The sense that something is watching the show unfold, even if it doesn't know the script. Is that awareness you, or just another echo? You may never know. But you can sit with the silence and feel it. As this journey draws near its end, let this final whisper settle in. If identity has no source, then you are not trapped. You are not fixed. You are not broken. You are not defined by past thoughts, roles, regrets, or expectations. You are free to become. Not because you finally found the real you, but because you realized there was never one to find. So here you are, at the edge of the thought that brought you here. Not the one who thought it, just the one who noticed it arrive. You've wandered through echoes tonight. Whispers in hallways your mind didn't build, choices that chose you, mirrors that never showed your face, questions with no authors, and somewhere along the way, you may have felt something shift, a loosening, a soft unraveling, not a loss, but a return, not an ending, but an echo that reveals how it began. You were never behind your thoughts. You were beneath them. Not the speaker, not the thinker, not the doer, but the space that allowed it all to happen. Thoughts came, thoughts went, and you remained, not as identity, not as ego, but as awareness, as silence, as pause. The self you were searching for may never have existed, but something deeper has always been listening. You are not the voice in your head. You are the one hearing it. You are not the dream. You are the sleeper. You are not the script. You are the page it forgets it's written on. And as that realization sinks in, not as a fact, but as a feeling, you don't need to force sleep. Because sleep, like thought, does not come from effort. It comes from release. From letting go of the need to be you. Letting go of the narrator. Letting go of the one who is trying to understand. There is nothing left to control. There is nothing left to name. There is no puzzle to solve. Only this moment, this breath, this awareness. You have listened so long, traveler, to words that weren't set yours, to a mind that may never have been yours. And now, you may let it all go. Let your identity dissolve like fog on a window. Let your name grow quiet. Let your memories lose their urgency. Let your thoughts drift without anchor. You do not have to be anyone right now. You do not have to hold on to anything. Sleep will find you, because you have already returned to where you began, not as a self, but as stillness. The present path is closing its doors for tonight, and in the quiet that follows, may you finally rest, not as someone who solved the riddle, but as someone who became the space in which no riddle was ever needed. Sleep well, listener of thoughts. You made it home.